everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and look, it's Austin, the day ghost.
What's up?
Today we're
It's
going to
been
tell
a
you how
while.
it has. Today we're going to tell you how we felt about Thor: Love and Thunder. Yeah, I've been on a theoretical hiatus for a while. I've been posting videos, but some kind of off the beaten path stuff, and not our regular scheduled programming. And so I guess it's been probably a couple weeks since I talked to you, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, we did that like a group call for the superhero rewind thing, but since then,
Yeah, I just mean
like
for the
besides that,
channel,
it's
though.
been like
Yeah,
yeah, it's been
I've
like a month.
talked to you, but the channel hasn't heard from you, so
Well, and even outside of that, it's been a while since we've hung out. So
that's true. So this will be nice. It's really good to see you, buddy. So tonight we're going to talk about a movie that I was real on the fence about even seeing. And I know I go to all of these and I review all of these. And this was one where I was like, maybe this will be the one MCU movie that I just wait for the rewind finally. I mean, it's my prerogative. I don't have to go to these necessarily, but like I've always done it. It felt really weird to skip one. And I started getting a little bit curious about it because this was polarizing in a way I didn't expect it to be. And because it had, I think, Austin, kind of a big drop off week 1 to 2. Did I hear that right? I haven't been keeping up, but
yeah,
that's what I heard.
well, it seems like it might not even make as much as Ragnarok did, which a lot of people are going, yeah, but it doesn't have China and Russia for the
Sure.
money, but it also cost more to make. So
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting because I don't know. A lot of this movie is kind of baffling to me, and there's gonna be a lot of me just kind of putting my hands up in the air, going, I don't know how I feel about certain things with it. I don't know how certain things came together with it. I don't know how much is left on the cutting room floor with it. It's an odd thing. In some ways, it's kind of what I expected, being more stuff from Waititi, and a lot of people that loved Ragnarok are not real happy with this. I was kind of equating it a little bit in my mind to like Batman Forever to Batman and Robin. And I saw somebody even in the comments before we started broadcasting said that. I'm not stealing anybody's thought. I had that thought too. I wanted to get that right up front. Where there were people who Batman Forever was too silly for them, but like by and large, the majority of people really enjoyed that movie and thought that it was a step in the right direction in comparing it to what they'd had before. It's like it in that way, right? Where it's like, well, if you look at the boredom fest that was Thor. What was that movie? There's so many of these things I can't even remember the names of
Dark
these movies
Thor.
anymore. Yeah, Dark World, which I still have, I think, only one time managed to get through an entire viewing without falling asleep during. Um, I get why some people thought Ragnarok was a breath of fresh air because it was fun and entertaining to them, and like that might not be your brand of humor. And I don't like that movie. I still go on record to say I don't think that movie works, and the pacing is all over the place. And I wish it had more scenes that were written down because I don't think the improv is very good. But I get why people were entertained by that. And in some ways, this feels like more of that to me. And I'm not quite getting why the people that loved that movie are turning against this, because I don't know that it's that much more of a farce than Ragnarok was, at least from where I'm standing. But that does seem to be a lot of people's reaction to it, where this is Batman and Robin to what TD is, Batman Forever with Ragnarok.
So I'm gonna flip that. I'm gonna say it's like going from Batman and Robin to Batman Forever because we got worse this time.
Right, but I'm not saying based on your personal
No,
opinions
no,
of
I
those
know.
movies. I'm saying, but don't you agree that it is sort of that phenomenon again
Yeah,
with the way people are responding to it?
no, it is definitely that. I was when I first walked out of the theater, 'cause I don't know if you remember this when the Russos and the writers from the Captain America movies signed on to do Infinity War and Endgame. There was an interview with the writers where they talked about how they were really worried about doing Avengers 3 and 4 because Age of Ultron wasn't received as well and it didn't make as much.
Yeah.
Went, okay, are we signing on to do like the big event thing, or are we signing on to do Superman 3 and 4? Like, what is going to happen with this? And walking out of this movie, I went, oh, well, this was Superman
Superman
3 and
3 and
4.
4. Yeah, I had that thought as well.
which I mean is basically the same thing as the Batman one, to some degree, anyways. But
Well, with the exception that they've got different directors, and those were made by entirely different studios too. But
yeah. Well, I just mean because you have like the two movies that people like, which kind of falls off with Batman a little, but and then you have like the two sillier ones that people don't like as much.
well, and this one ends up being weird too because you have a Thor trilogy that's not really a trilogy, especially tonally. And then, I mean, I think we could argue that Iron Man is much closer to an actual trilogy, and Captain America is closer to an actual trilogy, even if they're not like true trilogies. This feels like a movie, and then oh, we made kind of some missteps with that. Let's try to pivot a little bit with the sequel, and then let's try to pivot a little bit with the sequel. So like uh, Ragnarok feels like sort of starting over to some degree, at least in tone, in stylistically. Here's what these are going to be now. So this is Thor 4, but it's Ragnarok 2.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, it's basically like let's start over, and it kind of begins a new trilogy in the middle of the last one.
Yeah. Is it sort of an inverse of the First Class thing?
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess. Anyway, it all gets very confusing. So let me backtrack for a second and say welcome everybody watching live. We've got a good crowd right now. We've already got some super chats coming in. We will answer those after a bit. What I want to do tonight is I labeled this how we felt about instead of a spoiler cast because I've only seen the movie one time. So everybody kind of bear with me a little bit because I don't know this movie as well as Austin does. Austin saw it twice and has already shot a review for it, so he's real prepared for this. And you can check out Austin's first review of this movie on his channel, The Day Ghost. So he's doing another one with me right now. So everybody be kind because I'm sure there are some details that I missed and some things that I won't necessarily remember. And parts of this are already kind of going out of my brain. So hopefully I just saw this last night. So hopefully I've slept since then. I've even reviewed since then. So anyway, hopefully you guys can help jog my memory a little bit as we go along. So we're gonna do our basic best thing, worst thing, overall thoughts, sign flip at the beginning of this video, and then we're just gonna open it up to you guys and let you kind of drive the conversation afterwards, help direct the conversation. So we'll let this go as long as it makes sense to go. It will probably turn into something of a spoiler cast, but I want to do the whole how we felt about thing and go non-spoiler at the beginning, and then let you guys ask us about spoilery things. That's what we'll do. So I don't want to do super chats quite yet. We'll do that when we get into those things. And anyway, let's go ahead and go right away. So Austin, real quick, brief synopsis stuff. This is kind of very, very loosely adapting Jason Aaron's Thor, and these two movies are going to the two Thor runs that I'm familiar with, and making not great material out of them, in my opinion. So, Ragnarok goes to but one of them I'm certainly more invested in than the other, partly because one of them I read all of, which is Simonson and Jason Aaron's Thor. I never finished, and still want to, but just haven't gotten around to it. So we went back to Simonson in Ragnarok. I suspect the plan was already to do that before Waititi came on, and then he started monkeying with that material. I don't know if that's the case with this. I don't know if he got to decide what material they were adapting, if he intentionally went to more recent stuff and more popular stuff from the last, half a decade or more. I guess 2014 is maybe when is that when the female Thor stuff starts, or is that Gore the God Butcher? I can't even remember anymore. But
I'm not sure because I haven't read that stuff.
That's all Jason Aaron, and it's in a couple of different runs. So if you're not familiar with this, Gore the God Butcher is the first thing he does. He has Thor in different time periods, and we're seeing Thor in, and we don't do any of that in this movie, but we see Thor in the future as the All-Father, while simultaneously we have an unworthy Thor who doesn't have his hammer, who has to deal with Gore the God Butcher, who's just absolutely terrifying. Jason Aaron, I don't know why in the world you felt the need to make up a name that rhymes with your protagonist's name, because every time I say Gore, I want to say Thor. And then after that, he did very famously, of course, Female Thor is a big mystery. Who is she? It's just this Lady Thor. She's calling herself Thor. She talks like Thor, but obviously can't be Thor. And some people complained that Thor is not a mantle. Why are we doing that? It made more sense in the context of the book if you read it. Those things are all sandwiched together in one movie here, sort of like the way we sandwich together the Simonson Ragnarok stuff with Angela, I guess, because they sort of made Hela Angela. It was very strange. And then here, Jane Foster is, we know right away, is the second Thor, the mighty Thor. We'll talk about that. And she is, there's no mystery whatsoever. And those are kind of the big things we're dealing with. So you have you have a villain who wants to destroy all the gods because he's had a shattering disillusionment about religion and has had he's lost his daughter and the gods would do nothing to help him, and so he wants to kill all of the gods. And then we also have Jane Foster kind of becoming a god, and there's no interesting thematic linkages to those things, even though there absolutely could have been. It's right there. But anyway, so that's what's going on in this movie. I'm going to go ahead and shut up for a while and let Austin tell us how he felt about Thor, Love, and Thunder.
So, I guess I should give like a quick rundown of the Thor movies. Since I don't think I've ever talked about them in on the channel. So the first Thor movie I think is okay. Second one, I know everyone hates it. I think it's okay, but there's like bad stuff in it. But overall, I'm like, I don't really care. Ragnarok, I think, is annoying, but not just because of the comedy stuff. A lot of it's because we like took two stories, X-Men 3 style, and sandwiched them together, even though they don't fit.
And got rid of all the stuff that, I mean, I don't know if you agree with this, but got rid of all the stuff that I wanted to see, like, played with and fleshed out. And, you know, like, let's not do anything with the Asgardian society. And then the third movie, let's get rid of the Asgardian society. Like, you're right. It's not just that it's farcical. It's that we got rid of all the stuff that could have been interesting that we never did anything with.
Yeah, well, it ultimately is kind of just a remake of the first movie, except we replaced the Earth stuff with Planet Hulk, and we just go there instead. But going into this movie, I went, okay, it's going to be the same annoying comedy stuff, but we're only doing Gore the God Butcher this time, so it's not going to be the same like storytelling issues I had with Ragnarok. So I kind of went, like maybe it'll be a bit better. I don't think they'll make a joke about Jane having cancer in the same way they make jokes about Asgard blowing up. So going into it, it was like, it could be better this time.
They
like,
make more jokes about Asgard blowing up in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so I went to go see it, and there's more things I like in this movie, but overall everything around it is worse than the last movie. And that's Thor 4, More War for Thor and Gore. I don't know. I also hate this title and like refuse to refer to it as that.
I also hate this title. And I can't decide, I don't want to spoil too much yet, of course. I can't decide if I'm more okay with it because at the end we do a thing with the title, or if that makes it worse. Maybe it makes it worse. I'm not sure.
I think it makes it worse, but for a specific reason that we'll get to when we get there.
Okay. Best thing, worst thing, Austin.
My best thing's like a spoilery thing, so I'll
save it.
Yeah, I can save it, but at the same time,
but yet the promise that it's not going to be a cop-out best thing.
It's just a visual thing.
Oh, okay, that's fair. No, that's fair. I'm just saying, you need to give us at least a category so that when we get there, you're not like, I liked the color of the scene. Maybe it is that. It's a visual.
No, okay, I won't spoil it. I won't spoil it yet, but I'll just say, because I can't think of another best thing. My best thing is a thing near the end. It is a character and just how they visually look.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And then we'll get there later, but that's just what my best thing is. Worst thing is also hard to quantify. I'm a big Guardians of the Galaxy fan. I'm just gonna go with everything that they do because they're in it for like 5 minutes and they all feel out of character and it's really weird. And Chris Pratt like seems annoyed that he has to be there.
Yeah. How hard is it if you don't have all that much dialogue and material to just make them at least still feel like themselves? Like, they
Yeah,
have nothing to do, and yet somehow they feel completely out of place.
yeah, exactly. And when I walked out of it, I thought Chris Pratt reminded me of Harrison Ford in Rise of Skywalker, which I agree with what you said to me the other day, Cap, that it's different in that Ford doesn't care, while here Pratt seems annoyed to be there.
Exactly, yeah.
But like, I don't know, he's also like kind of disheveled in the same way that Ford is. Like he didn't clean up to be in it, and he's just kind of like, okay.
He stopped off on his way to the Dairy Queen, right? Like, he was going to get an ice cream cone, and...
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
was he going to, Infinity
Infinity
Cones?
cones.
Was that what he was doing?
Yeah, which is
We'll
definitely
talk
a
about
real
that.
thing that would happen. You know, it's like how New York has
We'll,
9/11
we'll get
pizzeria.
we'll get there. We'll get there. Now we're in a just tiny spoilery things.
That's like a background joke.
It
I don't know
is.
if that
It
counts as
is.
a spoiler.
Now, I mean, it's, a
Yeah, that's my
it's
best.
not a spoiler that anybody's going to be like, "How dare you spoil that?" I wouldn't think. But
Yeah, it's like the first 20 minutes. It's okay.
okay, so is your sign red?
My sign's red.
Is your sign a hard red? Like, so you said overall you're gonna call Ragnarok the better movie, even though you liked more specific things in this. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the specific things I like are maybe like two or three scenes. So it's like it's not enough to balance it out for me.
Sure. Yeah. I had a similar experience with it, I think, and I'm not sure if I would feel differently about it on a second viewing. Things are so relative, right? Like, a lot of folks, when I announced that I was finally gonna throw my hands in the air and do this, were like, "There's no way that Cap doesn't hate this movie, and there's no way that he doesn't think it's worse than Ragnarok." And the whole question in I'll just do the annoying comparison thing for a second. The whole question of which of these is the better movie, I'm a little up in the air about right now because I'll tell you that my response to Ragnarok was more visceral. My negative response to Ragnarok was more visceral than my negative response to this movie. But that's because I was more invested. Like, I
Yeah.
knew what I was getting myself into to some degree with this because I knew it was the same team that made that last movie. I knew it was the same guy who directed it. And so I'm like, okay, well, these are farces now. I didn't walk into Ragnarok knowing that. I had a bit of a fear that it might have been learning all of the wrong lessons from Guardians. But some folks, and one of the reasons I was a little bit trepidatious, I'll just full disclosure about even talking about this movie, is because of just how angry folks were that I disliked that last movie, and like, have obviously everybody's entitled to their opinion, and if you don't agree with me, that's cool. But some people seem to think that I like had something. I was like out to get that movie or out to get that director or something. I walked into that movie kind of excited about it. I thought the trailers looked pretty rad, and I
They
thought
sold a different movie.
they sold a different movie. I thought it had the, and again, I was a little worried it could be Thor just going, well, we don't know what to make with this, so I guess it's just going to sort of be another Guardians, and especially because they were going into the cosmic realm of Marvel, which at that point really only Gunn had dealt with. And those worries aside, I was like, this looks like kind of a punk rock metal thing, and it could be super fun, and it could be real ultra stylized and stuff. And then it was just tonally all over the place. And like I said earlier, not to repeat myself and not to just review that movie again, but the whole reason that I had such a visceral reaction to that is because it got rid of everything that I had been desperate to explore, and because I really like the material that they were adapting, and they weren't taking it very seriously. And now I'm starting to get the sense that some of the folks that really liked Waititi's take on this were responding to some of the things that would have been there probably regardless of whether he directed it. I'm not sure if I'm right about that, but a lot of people are like, oh, now it's just a full-blown farce and you went too far in the silly direction. And I'm like, I was already there. I already thought it was way too far in the silly direction. And I'm hearing, not that I've talked to a lot of people yet, but I'm hearing people with this saying, like, talking about Hela and the destruction of Asgard and all the kind of serious stuff in that movie. And I'm like, guys, I think that's the movie that they were already in the middle of making. And then they just brought on a guy who didn't take it very seriously and didn't really have a lot of reverence for the material, and instead of just giving it a little bit of levity, made it a self-parody. And so I was kind of expecting this to just be a full-on self-parody, because that's what we had before, and it is that, and some people were surprised by that who really liked Ragnarok. This was more or less kind of what I thought we would end up with, I think. And like I said, I wasn't as invested because we already got rid of the stuff that I was interested in, and because Thor has not been the character that was, kind of cool and fun to watch in a while. So not that I've ever been super in love with their take with Thor, but there have been flashes where he's closer to what I want, and especially in Infinity War and stuff. So like after Ragnarok, we get kind of the perfect version of Thor, and then their sequel, he's back to this and awful with the whole, fat Thor get up and all of that. So all I'm saying is I was not real shocked by the things that I found irritated with this movie. So it's not good. I don't like it overall, but I didn't hate myself for watching it, which, put that on the box, I guess. But I was able to find more enjoyment in this than in the last movie, partly because, like Austin, I think there were more things that I genuinely really did like and appreciate in this movie, and I will of course get into positives with this. I have more of them than I do with Ragnarok, even though I don't know that it's a overall better movie than Ragnarok. I'm not sure how to do that.
It's really hard to judge, right?
It's hard, especially because I'm coming at it from the subjective place of, and this is why I said earlier, everything is relative. I'm coming at it from the subjective place of, I had certain expectations going into the last one, and it was a totally different thing than I was hoping it would be or than I thought it would be. And this was not as bad as I thought it might be. So I didn't have, my standards were very in the floor for this, and I was able to find more enjoyment out of it because of that. I'll tell you, if I have to compare it to other stuff, I like it better than anything. I'll go this far. I like it better than anything Sony has done with their Spider-Verse without Spider-Man. I'll go that.
I mean,
I'll go that far.
Not saying anything.
Yeah, but I like some things in Venom,
That's true. You like the first Venom more than I do.
It's better than Morbius. All I'm saying is there's stuff in this genre that's come out this year that's worse than this movie. I will give it that. Okay, so I actually think on a first viewing, I might feel differently about it later, so again, nobody hold me to this. On a first viewing, I actually thought the pacing was a little bit better and more stomachable than the last movie, and I know a lot of people probably aren't going to agree with that. I might not agree with that on a second viewing, but I'm taking it scene to scene more than I'm taking it on the whole, right, on a first viewing. Mm-hmm. So, and again, I know my standards are very, very low, but I was excited that a lot of scenes didn't feel like they were going on to the end of the earth that I just wanted to get up and leave like I had with Ragnarok. There's more actual scripted material in this movie, and there's a lot of places where it feels more like a real movie to me. There are also places where it doesn't, and it's still very tonally disjointed and all over the place. Thor being such a buffoon about 65 to 70% of the time makes it really difficult to appreciate the actual tragedy and pathos that you get in some places in this movie, partly with Jane Foster and partly with Gore the God Butcher, who overall I was actually pretty okay with. We'll talk about his plan, because Austin and I have had some discussion about his plan, and there's questions about how much of that actually makes any sense and adds up. But I don't know. I thought that there were glimpses of a real honest to God story here, and the glimpses, and there's a lot of stuff that is pretty thematically interesting on paper, and some cool character parallels between our protagonist and our villain, or dual protagonists if you like, with Jane Foster as the other Thor. The problem is, any of that I might have latched onto and done a little bit of story analysis on, the movie does for me. Comes right out and explains all of it, and it becomes even more surface than it was because of that. And so that's unfortunate. Like, the writing's not good, but at least there's a little more actual writing this time, which I appreciate. But yeah, okay. So best thing, worst thing. I'm a little shocked that I'm going to say this, and again, it's on one viewing. My best thing is Natalie Portman. I can't believe I'm saying that. I thought she was all right. And again, this is like the real best thing is probably Christian Bale's performance, but that didn't surprise me like she did. So I'm gonna give it to her. Now, there's stuff about the mighty Thor that's obnoxious and I don't like. It is probably the biggest culprit of all time now for it's like this because it was like that in the comics, and we'll get there. But I thought Natalie Portman was not phoning it in and actually seemed to kind of want to be there, and was I thought that her kind of childlike wonder and amusement at getting to be a superhero was kind of infectious. That whole thing worked for me. You might think I'm a crazy person, but I liked that. That her whole trying to come up with a catchphrase thing and all of that. It was a little cute. It was a little quaint. I liked it. Worst thing I want to give to the way she becomes Thor, and all of that. That's probably not the actual worst thing. It's probably just that Thor is still such a buffoon, and that, like, last time at least he was consistent even though, with Ragnarok, even though he was out of character for what we'd had before. Here, we have two completely different Thors. In any given scene, he might be something closer to the Infinity War Thor, and I mean, I guess in a way that's a step in the right direction, because at least we're getting that guy again, but I never know where I stand with him. He keeps changing personalities. He's got this whole weird bipolar thing going on. Sometimes he's the Tick, and sometimes he's kind of Thor. It's very strange. Waititi clearly wants to make a Tick movie, and probably doesn't realize it.
Yeah, because in Ragnarok, he's terrible from start to finish, but he's consistent, while here we're bouncing back and forth. And we're not entirely sure what his characterization should be.
Yeah. And then just the farcical nature of it when it's really super inappropriate. We have to go to the nines with, well, Gore has, again, shattering disillusionment about gods, about religion, and we have to make the whole of not just a pantheon, but the pantheons, like all of gods, just like, not just they don't care about humanity or they see themselves above it, but they're just cartoon characters. And
yeah, Zeus could easily be worst thing of this movie,
yeah,
like in actuality.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll get there.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm giving it a red sign flip, but it was, for me, it was an inoffensively bad experience. I was like offended by Ragnarok, and this, I guess, I probably would have been if it had come out first. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know which movie is better than the other, but my attitude about it in the moment right now is different than the attitude I had with Ragnarok, because I've been inoculated. Like, I basically have had my shots to watch this movie.
No, you're like me with Star Wars. Like, I went into The Last Jedi, like, oh yeah, here we go, this is gonna be awesome, and it was god awful. And then Rise of Skywalker is worse. But I don't care. Like,
Star Wars, I didn't have feelings at that point.
Star Wars is dead to me by that point. So, like, I watched it and it was like, this is a movie.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
And I've got a similar thing with Ragnarok, or with this, where it is upsetting some of the precedents that it could potentially set, but I don't think this is going to have the influence on the MCU at large that Ragnarok had, and so I'm just not as worried about it. Like, this feels real throwaway. I've seen a few reviews that have called this, written reviews, that have called this, like, extraneous or superfluous, and I agree with that. I think it's really easy to kind of throw this out and forget about it. It's going to be, to some degree, unless we get a fifth Thor film, that runs with the status quo set up at the end of this, and I really hope to God that doesn't happen, because because I would hate that. I don't want to see that. Not talking yet about what that is, but like usually I would get to an ending like that and I would be like, oh God, I'm gonna have to sit through this, and I didn't have that with this. I was just like, I bet that'll never happen. Maybe it will, but I wasn't thinking about it. It just felt like this kind of inconsequential. That's the word that folks were using. Inconsequential, super like kind of pointless affair that I'm not thinking about the rest of this continuity at large or anything. You know, like it's pretty inoffensive as its own little piece. And there's things in it that were fun and potentially interesting. And like I said, I didn't hate myself watching it. So it wasn't the waste of time Morbius was, you know, in things like that. Like,
yeah, that's in a way kind of been a nice thing with Phase 4 is that there's a lot more, even though the quality I think is really dipped, there's a lot more things that are just inconsequential. Like you can watch it, it's this thing with this character, it doesn't really tie into anything.
Yeah, we're still setting up
this movie has
characters
that.
in after credit scenes and stuff, but like if they run with any of that, just like with Eternals, you're not gonna have to have seen Eternals to watch Blade. You know, you're not gonna have to see this to watch the character they set up at the end of this.
Well, and that's setting up a possible Thor 5, which I think they'll make, but we'll see. I don't know if they'll make it with Waititi. That's like a big thing. When Ragnarok came out, everybody was championing. God, I can't speak today. Everybody was like, Waititi's great, and he should replace Gunn, like when Gunn got fired.
Yeah.
And they're like, he should just keep going, like bring that guy back. I like everywhere I look, I see people being like, "Don't bring him back." Like this is it. Like that's his last Marvel movie.
So I'm saying this with respect, okay? I'm not putting myself on a pedestal and saying I'm above people that like Ragnarok and like Waititi. I'm just seriously asking the question because I'm not. For lack of a better way to put it, I'm not in that camp. I didn't have that experience with it. I don't like Ragnarok, and I've never appreciated that. I'm probably never really going to. But what I want to know, Austin, can you explain to me why people that loved Ragnarok and loved Waititi and wanted him to do a bunch more MCU stuff are turning against him with this? Because I don't quite understand it. I don't feel like I'm seeing a movie that's that far removed from the last one. I'm just asking the question because I don't get it.
Well, especially because I've seen a lot of people go, "Oh, this movie doesn't take anything seriously. It's too farcical." And it's like
that's how I felt about the last one.
This movie has less of that than the last one.
Yeah. No, there's more genuine scenes, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, I do feel like with as much farce as is in this movie, and some of it, again, it helps that more of it seems written. I don't feel like there's nearly as many scenes where Waititi just pointed a camera and did the Paul Feig thing and was like, just say things. There's some of that in this. But, none of that Jeff Goldblum stuff.
Well, and that's a big thing that was cut from this movie.
Yep.
And I wonder what that would have looked like.
Apparently lots of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And it sucks for Goldblum because he was on a couple of YouTube videos I saw, like, trying to get people excited about it, and then he's not in the movie.
Well, and that's
he was teasing it like a year ago.
Well, and that's the stuff where we get some of the things that I think a lot of us wanted with Gore, where they were going to bring back Goldblum and Peter Dinklage, from what I understand, for
Dinklage,
Gore to kill them off.
That.
Yeah, Dinklage was supposed to be in this movie. Lena Headey was supposed to be somebody in this movie.
Oh.
Who knows?
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I've heard that there's a lot of really gore scenes on the cutting room floor, and if that's true, I wouldn't be surprised because, and we'll start getting into spoilers here in a second, but he's the God Butcher, and he just doesn't do a whole lot of God butchering.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with his plan of what he needs, it would make sense for him to go to the Peter Dinklage character before he went to Asgard.
That's a really good point, yeah. Well, should we go ahead and start getting into spoiler territory and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
run
of course.
down these super chats? Let's go ahead and start at just the beginning of the super chats, Austin.
Mhm.
And when you think of things that you think we really need to tackle, feel free to just use these as springboards to get us there.
Yeah, of course.
Billy the Kid Lawrence, and if you guys don't hear us talking about an aspect of this you really want to hear, put it in the comments. I will be looking at non-super chat comments as well, but as always, if you want to make sure that your opinion or question or idea is discussed, leave a super chat, and we'll make sure that we tackle that. And thanks, everybody, for your support, too. We've already got quite a few. Billy the Kid Lawrence, $5 super chat. This is neither here nor there, and a thing that I will mention probably in the next Captain Logan show. Again, I'm still not making regular content right now. Send it to Austin on Twitter. I think he showed you. Yeah, I know about this. But the Ironheart series has built a White Castle set. They've been watching us. So bizarre that the week after I make a video at White Castle, because of the last MCU spoiler cast we did, for some reason, I don't know who's responsible for this. I don't know how it happened, but a bunch of people have decided that I needed to go to White Castle, and then me and Austin and what was Connor on that video?
Yep.
And then I finally found one in Florida when I was in Orlando, and I went to a White Castle. And the very next week, they're erecting a White Castle set for Ironheart. It's going to be relevant to what we're doing here. It's very strange.
I hope she works at White Castle. Like, we get lots of scenes where she's working there, and she's like, "Oh, you want fries with that?" And all this stuff.
I'm sure that's what it'll be, right? Like, she's a teenager. She'll probably have like a regular mundane teenager job.
Yeah, it'll be something like that, I'm sure. That'll be the hangout spot. All the kids hang out at White Castle these days.
Yeah, it'll be like Krispy Kreme for Power Rangers.
Oh my god, I hope so. I hope the villain needs to go to White Castle.
Oh, you hope that the MacGuffin for the whole piece is under a White Castle?
Yeah, it'll be I don't know, Titanium Man will be the main villain of that, and he'll be like, "Oh, I need the Stark Tech that's buried under White Castle."
Well, and everybody will compare it to the ice cream thing from Ant-Man.
Oh yeah, the
Right?
Baskin
With
Robbins.
the Baskin Robbins, yeah, because he was working at a product placement place that really exists in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
That was actually a point I meant to make earlier, that this, unless we really build on it with another film after this, and we may or may not, who knows, but at the moment, it is feeling like kind of an Ant-Man 2 to me, as far as just how kind of superficial it feels, or not superficial, pardon me. I mean, yeah, there's some of that too, but I just mean with how inconsequential it feels, even though arguably the stakes are larger. Well, I can't even say arguably, because I mean, like, there's a guy trying to kill all the gods. The stakes are larger.
Mm-hmm. Well, and both of them are trying to be rom-coms, so I guess that's just the death nail in MCU movies.
Yeah, you say death nail. I mean, that he's getting another one.
Yeah. No, but a big thing that I've been seeing with that,
mean people were lukewarm to not happy with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Also, this has the and thing, and has, like, Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is love and thunder, and the thunder is Thor. At least until we get to the end. The thunder is Thor, and the love is Jane Foster. So they might as well have called it. Well, I guess it would have been Thor and the Mighty Thor.
I mean, might as well.
Thor and other Thor.
But with the Ant-Man movies, the big thing, like, the press is kind of starting with the third Ant-Man movie, and I'm hearing a lot of people going like, "Oh, they're Ragnaroking it. This one's going to be a lot better." Not in the terms of it being a farce, but in the terms of them going, like, more into crazier stuff. And we're getting, like, MODOK as the villain and stuff.
Well, and one thing I do have to give, even though I think he is Waititi, even though I think that he is misguided in his approach to it, I'm not gonna say I don't appreciate that he brought psychedelicness to Thor, and that he is looking at Kirby and stuff. Like, one of the only big positive takeaways I had from Ragnarok is I liked what it looked like. Like, there's really nothing wrong with the look of that piece. This has a lot of what I liked visually from that, and there's some stunning stuff. There's some really impressive stuff, and then there's places where it looks kind of god-awful.
There's
And
some really bad effects in
I
this
don't think
movie.
Ragnarok had that, if memory serves.
I think it does to an extent.
Does it?
It's not as bad
More
as this.
consistent than this, though, right? In the
It's
special
more
effects
consistent
department.
than this. My thing with Ragnarok is just that I think most of it looks like it's on a green screen.
Well,
So
that was
I
my
have
big
some
thing with
issues with
this,
that.
though, is that too much of this looks like it's on a green screen. I didn't have that as much with Ragnarok, but
Mhm.
maybe if I saw it again, I would notice both of those movies doing the same things.
Well,
Because
this movie overall has worse effects.
yeah,
You
uh,
got that really bad floating head that is maybe the worst effect they've ever put out.
what floating head? What are we talking about?
With Heimdall's son when he calls them and he's a floating head in the room that they're in,
Oh, I
which
didn't
is just
notice
like,
that looking terrible.
oh, it's
Is
really
it
bad.
okay?
And that scene is also at like a city hall set, and it looks like they're on a green screen.
That's so weird. So we're in full blown spoiler territory now, guys. So I'll just go ahead and start mentioning like actual specifics with the movie. Um, my favorite scene visually and stylistically is also one of the scenes that looks the worst. It's so weird. I had this really bizarre response to this when they deal with Gore out in space on that moon and everything goes black and white. I was like, this is neat.
Mhm.
Like I really enjoyed that. I thought it was real comic booky. I like the way, and of course we've seen this with other things, but that didn't make it less cool. I like the colors that sometimes pop with Thor's cape. I like the inconsistencies of when the colors pop. It's like sometimes they're in total black and white, and then they'll be in specific places in that area that make colors pop, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh, it's when they use their powers, like the Thors, their lightning, like the blue,
Oh,
it
is
like
that what
glows.
causes it?
Yeah, and that's a cool effect,
That's
I think.
cool. And it went on a long time, and I liked how long we got to be in that area. Like I felt like I was watching in almost a good way. I felt like I was kind of watching a different movie for a while, and then the green screen was terrible.
Yeah, well, and
Through
then
that whole time, that just kept taking me out. Like stylistically, it looked really neat, but that was the place where I was most thinking about Superman 4.
well, and the fight scene in that spot looks terrible. There's two shots back to back where so I'm trying to remember how exactly it goes. So Thor and Gore, they like hit their weapons together, and then we do two shots, one of Jane fighting a monster, and then one of Valkyrie fighting a monster. And both of those shots back to back reminded me of that new DC logo where like the CGI DC heroes like come out, and I was like, wow, I can't believe this is like a scene in a movie.
Speaking of logos, what was with the
The terrible
electric
music.
guitar version of the Marvel logo? Like, if they were gonna do that, I just wish it had sounded better. It wasn't. It just wasn't great.
It's really embarrassing.
It wasn't full enough. Yeah, I thought it was kind of embarrassing. Here's what I like about the idea of that, and I'm gonna be a broken record. This whole movie was like this for me. I like this idea. It's executed horribly. I and maybe in that way I like it sort of slightly better than Ragnarok, just because there's a lot of ideas in Ragnarok I really disliked, and the things that I did were there in the first place, and I don't think came from Waititi. But anyway, I like the idea of this is gonna be a like hard metal kind of movie. Let's even change the logo to match that. Where just the whole thing is gonna be like hair metal, and that's the movie. And
Mhm. And we've
it's
done stuff like that with the Marvel logo, and it can be really cool, but it's really awkward here
yeah, I thought it was bad. And
because
what
it's the Spider-Man thing, right? Like
and that's
obviously,
awesome. When
yeah,
Homecoming does it, it's great.
and
Yeah.
they're both Giacchino, and you can tell that Giacchino's working on the Batman thing, and then just kind of crapped this one out.
Well, it shouldn't have been Giacchino because it's not the kind of music he makes. With Spider-Man, it was a bombastic orchestral version of the '60s Spider-Man tune, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yep,
With this, why didn't you just hire a rock band?
just get Slash to
Just
do
get
it.
yeah, that's what I was gonna
That's
say.
what you're trying to do
Yeah,
anyways.
just hire him.
And maybe they did, and it
Or
just sounds bad,
or
but I
somebody
don't
like
know.
yeah, maybe it's not Giacchino. That could be just an
But
assumption you're
Giacchino did do
making.
the music, but I assume it's him.
Well, sure,
But
maybe somebody else
yeah,
did that. I don't know, but whoever did it, it doesn't sound good. That's all I'm saying. But I will give them that. I thought it was really awkward that that last movie was sold so hard on this is going to be a metal movie. And then there's one scene that sounds like that. They use one song. This, they do it throughout. There are several tracks, and I don't think it's like, I'll go this far. I don't think it's the Suicide Squad thing where they like throw too much popular music in and it's real in your face and you don't know why they chose songs they chose. Like, I was okay with the incidental music in this. I think it worked all right, and I wish that Ragnarok had sounded like that because that's what they sold it on. And then this movie, it's like, that's what people thought we were making. Let's give them that. Like, I was kind of okay with all of that.
Yeah, we kind of just take the four like big radio hits of Guns N' Roses, and those are the four we get.
I guess it was all Guns N' Roses, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, they have to try to sort of make it an in-movie thing by having Heimdall's son be obsessed with Guns N' Roses for no good reason.
I don't know if you had this.
Yeah.
But that is just the Urkel scene from Thunder Force, where he says that his name is Axel. Where in Thunder Force, it's like, oh, remember Urkel? And they just keep saying that over and over. And in this, they're like, oh, hey, it's Astrid. No, my name is Axel. Astrid, Axel, Astrid, Axel. And they just say it over and over, which is all build up.
I hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But and even going in, I was looking for that scene because you told me about it, and I didn't pick up that was what you were talking. It is 500 times worse in Thunder
Force, of course. But it's also all build up for just the payoff joke being that Korg mispronounces Axel as a-hole.
Oh, is that the whole reason it's there?
I guess that's how it ends.
I couldn't figure out why that kid was obsessed with Guns N' Roses. That just came out of nowhere, and it was weird.
Everything about that's just kind of weird because it's like, oh well, we threw out Heimdall, but we kind of need him, so like he has a son now, but like.
There's just so many things like that where it's like, this seems like a thing that either the director is into or just wants the movie to be about, so he assigns a character to have that and doesn't really come from a character place. That kind of thing just always takes me out. In exactly the same way as I have to call myself the Mighty Thor for no reason other than that was the title of my comic book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
It's obnoxious. But the thing I was thinking about, because you had brought up Thunder Force before I went and saw the movie, was, what is she doing in this movie?
Oh, I already knew she was in it.
She's
I didn't even think about that. But
what is her name? I can't think of her name right now.
Melissa McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy is in this movie, and I was like, he brought up Thunder Force, and there's the Thunder Force actress and Ghostbusters. I know who Melissa McCarthy is, but I couldn't believe she was there.
Yeah, because we redo the play scene.
Yep.
But with no effort. Like, I don't think it's especially funny in the last movie, but they like kind of put thought into, adapting the first two movies into a play and how that would look.
And
they didn't do that at all.
It's one of those things that feels like it's only here because people laughed at it last time. It's exactly the same thing as redoing the Quicksilver scene after Days of Future Past. No, we got to do that again. That was the big scene everybody talked about.
Mm-hmm. And it comes back again later after Gore's first attack, where Matt Damon shows up and he's like, "Oh, can we make a play out of this one now too?"
I was actually expecting that to pay off, and I was really glad it didn't. But if they make another movie, he'll come back and they'll do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was unnecessary and irritating, but there was one bit about it that I kind of chuckled at. Like, the low budgetness of it was a little funny, and funnier somehow this time than last time, or maybe I was just already so shocked and dismayed by how much of a farce I was in the last time that I didn't appreciate anything that might have actually been funny about that, and I'll give you that, but the, like, throwing out glitter and then disappearing by just, like, coming down and going behind a thing was funny, and then Melissa McCarthy with the hammer, where the Thor is like trying to bring his hammer back and then throws it, or trying to hit her with it and throws it, and then it's on a line, and then she just puts her hand out like this and grabs it like she sucked it to herself, and she's like, "Ha ha!" Like, that was funny. But that was what I found amusing about that scene.
I should say,
I chuckled in places. I don't know.
I laughed twice in this movie, and both of them were really inappropriate.
You were laughing at the movie. Was there anything the movie did that you found funny?
Not really,
Okay,
but
okay.
I laughed at two things in this movie. One was when Korg says that Thor never skips leg day because I imagined you watching that scene. And then,
I hate the leg day joke. It needs to go away. It's not funny. It was never funny, and I don't get why it's in everything. I just want to kill people when I hear that. It drives me. I don't mean anybody in particular. Okay, this is not a death threat. It just makes me angry. I don't like it. God, stop it. And also with things like that, and I didn't have this with Ragnarok. There's too much Deadpool humor in this movie. Just straight up Deadpool humor.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Sorry,
The other thing I laughed at,
I hate leg day.
which is the really like inappropriate one, which is I laughed at the shot of Jane standing at her mom's tombstone because her name was Elaine Foster, and it made me laugh that their names rhymed.
Wow. What if Thor's mom's name had also been Elaine?
What if her name was Yor, and you get like Yor, Thor, and Gore?
Let's get back to the super chat, shall we, folks? Mr. Lockfight on the super chat. We're back to White Castle. White Castle is better than Infinity Cones. Well, you don't know. You've never been there. And one of these has actual ice cream. But, well, actually, maybe Waffle House, or Waffle House. Waffle House. Maybe White Castle has actual ice cream. I don't know, because they just have milkshakes on the menu, is what I saw. So maybe they're using real milk. I don't know. But
Maybe Infinity Cones has infinity sliders. You got to collect all of them, and then you get diabetes.
That's how you get it. You get infinite diabetes. How? So everybody has been talking about the Infinity Cones thing as being, or a lot of folks as being that I've seen in just our comments about us doing this. The Infinity Cones thing came up, and even before the show tonight, I saw people talking about it. That it's just a really crass thing to do for a throwaway joke. That, like, if you think about it for 2.5 seconds, you're like, wow, that's an insanely poor taste. Why on earth would anybody do that? And then it makes, because remember, Asgard was destroyed by Thanos, and then just because it's popular in the real world, the Infinity logo and those movies and everything, we take that logo and we put it on an ice cream place, a restaurant, and we call it Infinity Cones. Nobody's gonna eat there. That's a terrible. Somebody's gonna bomb it. Like, that's a terrible idea.
Everything about New Asgard is a terrible idea,
really
though.
Really cynical, and it bothers me.
Yeah, because it's just like a tourist trap now, and also Valkyrie's introduced in an Old Spice commercial, even though she's the leader of a nation. Just everything, and you get like Disney cruise ships in the background of those scenes.
Yeah,
and it's like just everything about it is just kind of like, oh.
Am I reading it wrong? It didn't read like social commentary to me. It didn't read like there was anything wrong with any of this.
No, I also don't know anything about Asgard. Like specifically in this movie, I get that they didn't really do much in the first place.
I wouldn't think actual Asgard was this commercial and corporatized. And I think the idea was supposed to be like, maybe I'm reading it wrong, and maybe Waititi's idea was they've Americanized and this is just what America does, and you can read into it that's good or bad. But the way it watches is like we're celebrating corporatism. I mean, like, there's real, lush kind of happy music. Like, look how everybody's getting along, and we like massively corporatized. And I don't mean to be political when I'm saying this. It's just because, like, I'm not saying that I'm against fair competition in the marketplace and that sort of thing, but it just read really cynical to me, where it's like, oh good, Asgard has survived by Disney buying it or something. Like, that's what it watches like.
Yeah, because everybody that liked that movie latched on to the imperialism thing with Ragnarok that's in one scene, and we decided is the theme of the whole movie. I guess that's why old Asgard was bad and deserved to die. New Asgard is good and deserves to live because it's just Disneyland.
Yeah. And then, I say it's cynical. And this is going too far, I'm sure, but it kind of watches like they're making it look like a theme park in that movie, so that if it's popular, they can just recreate it in a theme park, like we've done with parts of the Harry Potter world and all of that.
Or like the Avengers, they have like
Universal
the
and
Avengers facility stuff at Disney World. It's like that.
yeah, but I just went to Universal a couple weeks ago, and
Yeah, no, of
the
course.
and the what's the name of that street? It's not Diagon Alley. It's the other one, because they have two of them. They have Diagon Alley in the Universal side, and then in the Islands of Adventure side, they have that place.
It's the spot that's right off of Hogwarts, right? That little like town that's right
Yeah,
next
it's that town that you get to go to if you
yeah,
have a
I can't
permission
think of what
slip. I can't remember the name of
well,
it. Anyway,
yeah.
this reminded me of that.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and then we only have like two scenes in Asgard, and most of what we do to just show what the society is like is just look how much they sold out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand what Asgard is now. And I understand that it's not developed very much in the first three movies, but I have more of an understanding of what Asgard even is.
Well, and that kind of gets into the whole question about Gore's plan, because if I don't understand Asgard, I don't see how he possibly could. So, I mean, we'll get
That
to
was
that.
probably a deleted scene. Gore walks into Infinity Cones, and then he just hangs out for 10 minutes.
Do you have Rocky Road? My daughter's favorite ice cream was Rocky Road. No! How do you not have Rocky Road?
And then he decapitates them. All gods must die.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the big question is, how many gods are even in Asgard? 0? 1? I don't know. Valkyrie's not talked about like she's a god.
No, Gore talks about how she was kind of screwed over by gods in the same way he was, but doesn't refer to her as a god.
Trying to create a similarity between them. And he does that with Thor, too. Like, we're the same because I appreciated gods, and he doesn't talk about the fact that Thor is a god, but like you thought you could trust gods like I did. You can't. Look how much of an idiot Zeus is. All of that. We don't do enough with that parallel, and it's too obvious and on the nose. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess we should just talk about Gore then. This movie
Well,
opens.
let me read another super chat real quick.
Go
because
ahead.
Because it's another White Castle one. All the super chats so far have been White Castle. Folks, if you want us to talk about this movie, you still have time. Okay, Greg Asian Shield, $5 super chat. Thank you guys for the support, though. I appreciate you guys. Do you think Valhalla has White Castles? That would be bliss.
Well, that was one of the deleted scenes. Was they got Anthony Hopkins back, and he works at White Castle in Valhalla.
Okay, I have a plan. I'm going to keep reading super chats until they're no longer about White Castle. Zach, and they're different people too. Zach Worthman, $5 super chat. Surprise Valkyrie made an ad for Old Spice. White Castle would have been a better choice. And we did already talk about the Old Spice thing. That really
terrible introduction.
Yeah, awful. And again,
Valkyrie
I just
also doesn't need to be in this movie.
Yeah, but I also just don't understand what I'm supposed to take from any of that. Like, it really seems like the movie is on the side of Asgard becoming all corporatized, and that's very strange to me.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
I'm not saying the movie has to have a big big business message. I'm just saying, like, that's what we're supposed to want for Asgard.
No, it's just their society doesn't really make any sense, and it's just I don't know. They sold out.
I do like the idea that there's so few of them left that they're like a melting pot now, and they'll take in other people. Like I don't mind that. I don't
Yeah.
mind the idea of like human families living there, and even people from other realms and stuff. I don't know how you felt about that, but the fact that there were like several
No, they just
alien
become
species
like a
there, that's
country.
cool.
No, I like that too. I like that they're basically just like a country and like you can move to Asgard if you want.
Yeah, that's neat. I like that. But it looks like a quaint little fishing village that turns out to be Disney World, and it's weird.
Yeah, because none of that stuff's in Endgame when we go to Asgard. Like it's almost a completely different place.
Wow, that's because Waititi didn't make that movie, and we have this.
No, no, I know.
And I'm not trying to throw Infinity Stones at him. Okay, the thing with a lot of these movies is we play it like, isn't it cool that they're all in the same continuity and we keep building on each other? But it is a lot like comics where directors will come in, and we talk a lot about how this is a big machine and how the directors are just kind of workman directors, and that's true and it's not true because you'll you get a lot of formulaic stuff, and we have a lot of real evidence that you have whole like pre-vised scenes and stuff before directors get on where they didn't even get to decide what any of the action was going to be. But at the same time, they'll come in and they'll just ignore stuff that was done with characters and franchises before they came on. So it's true and it's not true. But
Yeah,
but
when
I was just saying
something like
that
a
in
gun,
response
like
to the thing with none of that stuff being there in Infinity War, because it's like, well, but you've got another director now, and he's doing his own thing.
mhm. No, that is true. I mean, that also goes with the Guardian stuff, but I don't think they really feel like the same characters.
Okay, so the next super chat is not about White Castle, so why don't you go ahead and start us in on Gore the God Butcher and how you feel about how that whole thing's handled. Go ahead.
So one thing that this movie has over Ragnarok is that Ragnarok has one of the worst opening 15 minutes of any of the MCU movies. And this movie has an element of it, which is the first 15 minutes of Ragnarok are just, okay, here's all the baggage we have. Let's like get rid of all of it. Like this all needs to go. And we have elements of that with the Guardians. But the opening scene of this movie is a really cool short film until eventually Gore stumbles into the actual movie that he's in, where the whole like bit of him in the desert's really good, and I like the
And
stuff with
that's
his
kind of right
daughter.
out of Aaron.
Oh,
I
okay.
was impressed
When
with that
Aaron
because
was a consultant on this movie.
it felt tonally a lot like the way he's introduced in that. And I like
Mhm.
that a lot. That brings me to a question I meant to. Can I ask you this real quick?
Mhm.
This is a thing I meant to ask you earlier, because I was saying, and we didn't really land on anything. Why do you think that fans of Ragnarok turned against this so hard? How much of it? And again, I don't mean to sound disrespectful to anybody. I don't mean to act above anybody. I'm just wondering if this might be part of the issue. Is some of it just those folks, or some of them anyway, wanted the Guardians Thor movie and they didn't get that? Is some of it just disappointment that the Guardians were sloughed off in the first 5 minutes of this movie, and then it's not the movie that was kind of promised by the end of Endgame? Is that what people are complaining about? Maybe.
I've definitely seen that from people. I think it's really interesting that this movie just kind of throws that stuff away immediately. And Gunn, in an interview recently, said that even when his movie was supposed to come out right after Endgame, he was never going to have Thor in his movie. So
Yeah.
that was never really going anywhere.
Yeah, but there's no reason Waititi couldn't have ran with it.
Yeah, and I assumed. I remember early on hearing a rumor that at the start of that movie, the main Guardians would kind of like leave early, but Rocket and Groot would stick on, and we'd have that kind of Infinity War team up.
Oh, I wouldn't
And
have minded
then
that so much.
the rest of the Guardians would come back for the climax, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. I'd be fine with that. Having seen it, I'm glad that they leave.
Well, yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm saying I wouldn't have minded that if
yeah,
they'd been handled better than they were here. But then it's not like Rocket really even gets anything to say. So like maybe he would have been better
he
written
gets like
than,
2 lines. Yeah.
yeah.
I've heard people complain that he sounds like they just piece together his lines from words that he said in other movies. I don't exactly have that, but his voice, I don't know, it sounds like raspier than it normally does.
So anyway, how did you feel about Gore and his plan, his monstrous plan?
So my reaction to Gore in this movie is that I like that opening scene until he stumbles into uh the little forest that's in the desert where he meets his first god, which is just terrible. The god in that scene looks like he's out of a Lonely Island music video. He looks terrible, and like from that point on until the end, I like his last scene and I like the first half of his first scene. After that, I think they put a hook on Christian Bale and just throw him out to sea. I don't know what he's doing in this movie.
You said that to me yesterday, and I'm kind of curious to know what you mean by that. Like, what did you find so weird about his performance?
I don't even know if I can like put my finger on it, but it just feels like he's just I don't like he's hamming it up in a certain way, and it just I don't know. He just feels like very out there in a like I don't even know what you're doing kind of a place, and he completely disappears because he's Christian Bale and he throws himself into it. But his performance is just like I don't know, strange.
Yeah, I don't think we have the character substance, unfortunately, to go with what he's doing. But if we did, maybe it would make sense. I didn't mind his performance. I thought he was fine all the way through. I thought he was in a different movie.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's entirely on him. Like I legitimately feel like they just slapped him in front of a camera, didn't really know what to do, so he went, "Okay, how do I build up this material?"
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I said, like I don't even I've seen it twice now, and I don't even know how exactly I would describe what's off about his performance. But
Is
it's
it
just
weird in like a Tom Hardy Bane way, or it's just like how'd you come to this choice? It's weird.
maybe, and he like jumps around a lot. How he talks like.
The
And he
only
goes like really big with his mouth, which I guess is like I've heard of something that's in the panels of like Gore in the comics, but it feels weird in like a live action movie.
it did look like he looked at that material and liked it and tried to do something with it. Like it didn't look like he went, okay, I don't know what the score thing is, but I'll make something out of it. Like, and I don't know if you read the comics, but it looks like he did.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if you've like seen anything about him outside of this movie, but he doesn't even seem to know what the MCU is. So I don't know if he actually read any comics.
That's
There's a
really
re
funny.
there's a really good. I think it's like on the red carpet for this movie. Somebody asks him like how he feels to be in the MCU, and he's like, "I'm in what?"
Well, he's not keeping up on news and watching a lot of movies and things, so maybe
No, of
just the
course.
acronym threw him off. Like, I don't know, that means he doesn't know that there is a universe with a bunch of movies that's like, sure. There's no way he could not know that. Like,
I don't know.
he's got kids that grew up with it. We know his kids watch Powerpuff Girls and he likes Powerpuff Girls, so like he's aware of pop culture stuff.
Yeah, that's not the MCU though.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, if he couldn't get through life without knowing about the Powerpuff Girls, there's no way he got through life without knowing what the MCU is.
Yeah. No, that was the other thing is they asked him like what other Marvel movies he saw, and he was like, "I've seen the one with the purple bloke and his stones."
Yeah, but like he famously doesn't watch a lot of movies.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like a thing he talked about because they asked him about the Batman, and he was like, "I
Yeah,
don't know, I don't watch movies."
well, he said he's gonna see it, he just hasn't gotten around to it yet.
Hmm.
And
Which I don't think is like an issue. I just think it's funny.
no, I don't either, and I like how transparent he is, like how honest he is about that kind of thing. Because how easy would it have been? We're going off the rails now, but how easy would it have been for him to just say, "Oh yeah, Pattinson was great," and like try to move on? But like he didn't
Yeah.
do that. He says it sometimes drives directors crazy because he'll get on a movie and he's only seen a couple of their films, and they're like, "Really? You haven't seen my other?" Yeah, I don't. Because what he
Yeah.
said, and I respect this because I feel the same way to a certain extent. Where he said, "I like to savor movies." That's what he said. So he doesn't watch a ton of movies. If he's going to watch a movie, it's going to be something he's really invested in, he really wants to see, and he's going to take his time and watch it. He's not just going to like binge a bunch of things.
Hmm.
I don't know. I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah.
That suggests that maybe he'll take a week. He'll watch one movie and he'll think about it for a few days before he watches the next one. Like I can be like that. Like I
Hmm. Well, and it's not like actors like, have to watch stuff. They're just doing a job at the end of the day.
yeah,
They don't really need to know about all of this stuff.
yeah, absolutely. But it does make me wonder if he uh, had any idea what he was talking about in scenes where he's talking about things that happen in other movies. Because he has a couple lines like that.
Hmm. Oh,
Was,
they were probably like, just say this, and he was like, "What?"
how many of these
Just say
movies
it.
have there been? Thor movies? 4. Overall, 29.
And he was like, "Oh God, I can't watch that many."
Okay, so what do you find confusing about Gore's plan and or motivation?
Okay, so Gore's whole thing is that he's hanging out with his daughter, and then they die because his gods won't help them. And he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna kill all the gods. That's what I'm gonna do. They don't care about people. They let my child die." And then he's just going around kind of willy-nilly killing random gods, but really what he wants to do is he wants to find eternity, which can only be accessed by the Bifrost, which is already extremely weird because why is like this one culture's thing the only thing that can get you an audience with basically the universe itself?
How did yeah, let me ask you this real quick. How
Mhm.
did aliens from other realms, which are now referred to as planets and realms interchangeably, how
Mhm.
did they get to other realms? Did they also use the Bifrost, or did they have other means of doing that?
I assume they have other means,
Okay.
but I don't know. Because you get weird stuff like, well, and that's another thing is that Thor can teleport with Zeus's lightning bolt, so I guess that's like the Greek version of the Bifrost. And Valkyrie's Pegasus can like do warp speed. I don't understand how that works outside of plot
Well,
convenience.
and I forget who it was, but somebody in the comments earlier said, "Why do they need the goats if Stormbreaker can already access the Bifrost?"
Okay, so I had that thought the first time, and then the second time I was really like paying more attention to that. The reason why they can't do it is because Stormbreaker is jealous that Thor is happy to see Mjolnir. So when Thor tries to use Stormbreaker after seeing it, it just throws him into like the one pillar thing in Asgard, and
That's
then it's
true.
acting up,
So he can't rely on it.
so he can't rely on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just complete contrivance. Like I don't that whole subplot
There's some
where
sitcom nonsense in this movie
the
that we haven't
the
even
axe
talked
is
about.
jealous is really stupid.
Yeah, that's some of the stuff I found most difficult to sit through.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Where
Uh,
you have the real typical like awkwardness of the couple maybe getting back together, maybe not, trying to decide how they're going to talk to each other. Which maybe I would appreciate more if Thor was more consistently characterized, but like up to that point, he's just an irritating buffoon. So like I don't want to sit through any of that. I never thought they had very much chemistry. Weirdly, once she puts on the Thor costume, I feel like they have something closer to chemistry. Like I still don't think they're great together, but I like them a lot more than I ever have. I just wish the writing was better. I just mean the actors in the scenes, right?
mhm.
Like
Yeah, because they never had chemistry. They're better in this one, but I don't think they're great. But we're like really trying to make up for their lack of chemistry in the first two.
yeah. Well, and I have timeline questions about all of that. We'll get back to Gore in a second. Can I ask you about this in
Hmm.
case it doesn't come up again? When did their whole relationship happen?
So
What am
I
I missing here? There's a whole montage where they like live together and like when did any of that happen?
well, I think it's supposed to be from the end of Dark World because he shows back up on Earth and he's like, okay, we're gonna hang out now. That's when he lives with her, and he lives with her all
Oh.
the way from there to probably Age of Ultron,
Oh, okay, okay. So
I
maybe there is
guess.
actually a swath of time where that could have happened. It's just, I guess, I always assumed that because I forgot that's how that movie ends. I always assumed that like they're awkward in Dark World because he doesn't go back to see her for no good reason at all. The excuse is the Bifrost getting destroyed, but he's able to go other places. That always irked me, and I complained about that in the rewind. And then I assumed at the end of that movie they just didn't get back together because he was busy being Thor. But I guess there's no reason he couldn't have, because he doesn't go back and become King of Asgard, because every Thor movie is about him trying to figure out who he is, and he never figures it out. And or he does, but then the next movie he's like, I don't know what I'm about anymore, and this is the most egregious about that. But anyway.
Yeah, because in Age of Ultron they talk about how they're still in a relationship, but that movie also ends with him leaving Earth to go find out about the Infinity Stones. So I guess that's supposed to be the part where he leaves.
Oh, right, when we're setting up the whole Hulk trilogy inside of movies that don't have the word Hulk in them.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe the timeline is not a problem. Some of that I was forgetting, so all right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm glad that makes sense if it does, because I was very confused. I was like, when did this happen?
Well, it also is just them trying really hard to just make up for the lack of setup those two have.
Yeah, because they don't spend any time together on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you want to go back to Gore?
Oh yeah, so Gore's whole thing, his child was killed because the gods were like, we don't care. He's like, all gods should die because of this. And then again, instead of, because we cut all the stuff, I guess, where he would have tried to get Stormbreaker from Peter Dinklage. So he's just kind of bumbling around, killing random gods until finally he decides to attack Asgard so we can get the Bifrost. And
he's a little like Thanos, right?
In what sense?
In the sense of, okay, so we're gonna have, except we condense it all into one movie, right?
Oh, is it because Thanos wants the Infinity Stones, but he's also just kind of killing random societies on the way?
Yeah, and
okay.
He's getting. You think that he's been getting the stones gradually through movies, and then when you get to Infinity War, it opens with he takes a couple of them and he spends the whole rest of the movie getting the rest of them. What have you been doing for the last decade of MCU? I guess
the difference there is that Gore never showed up and was like, "I'm handling this myself."
Well, at least Thanos knew about the Infinity Stones and was actively, apparently, trying to find out where they were, and was, I guess, just failing at that. I don't know how Gore knows anything. How does he know Stormbreaker can do that? And even if that's given to us in the Peter Dinklage stuff that was cut, if you're right and that happened, I still don't know why he would go to him in the first place. How does he know about that?
I don't know. I don't know how Gore knows half of what he knows in this movie. How he knows about how the Valkyries were all massacred, or how he knows that they went to see Zeus. And
yeah, he knows
told
that.
No.
He's got that line. You mentioned that yesterday, and I've forgotten about that. Where he's like, yeah, you went to Zeus, and look what Zeus did. That's when he's. I think that's the scene where he's saying, Thor, you and I are the same.
Yeah, he knows that Jane has cancer. I don't know how he knows that.
How does he know that? Is the sword that he has not only making him a psychopath, and because he's supposed to be mad because of the sword? Because the MCU does not like true madness. It's really against villains that actually become mad through any kind of experience or circumstance. It's always got to be some kind of an art. 2 movies in a row, we've got an artifact that makes you crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But maybe that artifact also has lots of other powers that we don't know about. That's the only possible explanation.
Yeah, so he's like, I'm gonna go to Eternity, because we've now introduced Eternity, and we've changed the rules so that Eternity will only give the wish to the first person that finds him, which also adds to some weird stuff continuity-wise. Why isn't Thor trying to go to Eternity after Infinity War?
Well, did Thor know about Eternity?
Yeah, because he and Valkyrie are like, oh my god, Gore is going to Eternity. That's really bad.
Okay, so when you say, because I guess I missed this line, so when you say that they've changed it so that it's just the first person, So like in history, so no one's ever been there,
No one's ever made it to eternity. Yeah.
and everyone that knows about cosmic things knows that if you go there, you get a wish, but nobody's ever been there, and we're just assuming that we like what was everybody gonna get a memo when they've been there? Like now that Gore's been there, does everybody in the galaxy know? Like, oh yeah, screw that eternity. Don't try to go there because somebody went, and it should be harder to do than it is then. Like in the history of the world, no one's ever been there.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to be granted a wish, did it really fall?
Did, did we do that just so that there's no excuse for
To
Jane
go back.
Foster's death? Is that why we did that?
Yeah, I think so. And
Because
that,
I have to
that
say,
way, there's no open question of, well, why don't they just go back to eternity? Why doesn't Thor just go back to
or why
eternity?
doesn't Thor in that moment also ask Eternity to save Jane and to take her cancer away? Because I had that question, but I guess I had missed the line that that only one person could ever go to Eternity.
Mhm.
I did think that I was impressed that they actually let her die at the end though. Like
Yeah.
even with the whole
Yeah, I
Valhalla
agree.
thing, whatever, where you see her at the end, it's still not Deadpool 2. We still didn't resurrect her, man. I thought that was gonna happen, and I was so glad it didn't. But yeah, I will give them that. I thought it was really cool that she gets to do the actual self-sacrifice thing, and they actually kill her at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I didn't think they'd do
Um,
that. I was okay with the ending overall, except for with the little girl in Thor at the end. I didn't like that at all because I don't want that movie. But and the whole Love and Thunder thing is um,
mhm.
sappy, and I don't love that. But Gore, like Thor getting Gore to ask for his daughter back instead of the destruction of the gods, I think is good, and Jane Foster actually dying, I think is good. The action
Mhm.
scene before that, notwithstanding,
The action scene before that, I think, is the worst climax in the MCU. It's really bad and opens up another can of worms. Like when they went, okay, we're gonna have this giant battle, we're gonna fight all of Thanos' army. Why wasn't Thor like, hey, everyone here has my power for the next 20 minutes. Let's go kill him.
I heard somebody else complaining about that. No, I don't think that's a problem. The real problem is how does he know he can use the lightning bolt to do that? Because he uses Zeus's lightning bolt to do that. Well, he didn't have that in Infinity
Why?
War.
Yeah. No, I don't understand like any of that. And
But all I'm saying is, but why are you assuming that he could do it in Infinity War? He used the lightning bolt.
is it just that but he's doing the same thing that like Odin did with his hammer. I don't think it's just because of the
But he
lightning.
spoke it into the lightning bolt, and he used the no, but it's his. He well, is he using the hammer at all in conjunction with the lightning bolt, or is it just the lightning bolt?
No, it's just the lightning bolt, but
So you're
but
assuming he could charm any object to do that?
yes, because that's
Okay,
also why
all right,
Jane can become Thor is because he was like, "Hey, hammer,
yeah.
protect Jane."
And the
That's
hammer's like, I guess the way I'll protect her is to make it so that she doesn't have the symptoms of cancer while she's holding me, but then she's gonna have worse cancer, which is in the that part of it's actually in the book, by the way. But she's gonna get, her cancer's gonna get worse while she has me. So how's that protecting her? Exactly. If I was the hammer, I'd leave her well enough alone, I think. Sorry,
yeah,
we're jumping around a
exactly.
lot, but no, I guess you're right. If he can enchant anything
Mhm.
and
And
give people his
there's
powers,
obviously there's a certain degree of okay, you have to just take that out of your mind. Like I don't care that Iron Man could give everybody an Iron Man suit and they'd be stronger. Like that's superhero stuff. Like that's not a thing. But this movie did it, so
yeah, this
now
movie
I have
actually
to
did it.
question it. And you know,
Okay, you're right about that.
Thor leading an army of child Thors set to the ending guitar solo of November Rain is just really embarrassing. It It's just, what a terrible image.
You,
And that
you, some,
song's
you
not
sometimes
actually.
get hung up on song choices that don't do anything to me, but like I guess some of that's subjective. Like there are times where I'll be like that song choice is insane, and then other times where you'll particularly to TV stuff, you'll react to things where I'm like, I don't know if that was that big of a deal, but all right.
It's not action music. It's really weird to me.
Well, and then that just becomes a weird taste issue where like this director likes doing anachronistic things. And I don't always understand why it's funny beyond just look how absurd it is that we chose this thing that's not appropriate. Like I think it's supposed to be fun because it's not appropriate, probably because he does that stuff. And I like random humor. So there are points where he'll do really, really out there random stuff that I find amusing, and other times where it just doesn't work for me. So like, it's hard to psychoanalyze yourself and know why certain things work and why certain things don't. But
But I had this idea watching it the first time where because that song's like about a relationship. Instead of having Korg narrate the montage that we do of Jane and Thor, where he basically just explains their motivations, why don't you basically do that scene as a silent film set to earlier in November Rain? And then if you wanted to have the big like guitar solo be an action thing, have that then come back when she shows up to help him at the end, and that's when the solo
now
plays
it's
out.
setup and payoff,
It's set up and payoff.
and it's thematically relevant to your story.
Yeah. Like if that's what you wanted to do, why didn't you do that? That would make more sense.
There's a lot of that in this movie, right? Where we're just leaving good ideas, especially thematically and character wise, on the cutting room floor. How is there no discussion in this at all about whether some of the gods should be considered gods? Like, this movie should be discussing the question of what is a god. Thor, again, also gets like disillusioned and has his, even though he is a god, has his faith in people, if you like, or his faith in other gods questioned because of what happens with Zeus and the Pantheon. It reminds me of a Patrick Warburton Tick episode where Tick and Arthur get invited to their version of the Justice League, and it turns out that they don't actually care about helping people so much as just having like a boys' club, and they're like chauvinists, and they're all white men, and they don't let they don't let any other ethnicities or genders in, and this kind of and they just kind of hole up in one building all the time, and it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. And so if you're Thor, you got to be like, oh, I don't know if I can trust my own kind anymore, or like I don't want to be part of this fraternity. Like they're superficial and they suck and they just sit around making fun of everyone, having orgies apparently. And
Isn't that funny?
yeah, because everybody knows that Zeus did that,
And he also has like the most stereotypical accent.
it's bad.
It's also not funny.
No, it's not. But there's no like we're told that they're the same in the real typical you should join me, hero, because we feel the same about a thing kind of scene. But there's no discussion about. In this world where gods can die and where gods are not the creators of the universe, are they gods? Why are we not talking about that?
Yeah. Well, and it's also just weird, and it's not bad because it's not what I expected. But when the second they started casting all of these people as god characters, I think everybody went, "Oh, we're introducing Zeus, so we have fodder for Gore to kill." Instead,
Yeah.
we get nothing. He kills the god at the beginning. That's it. It's really strange. Gore doesn't do any god butchering.
Yeah, and so uh, Bale has to be scary by just like making faces and having a weird voice because he doesn't get to beyond that first scene. He doesn't get to really kill anything, and like he's kind of scary in some of the action scenes. And I do appreciate that Thor gets to fight him as much as he does. That's the thing I
Yeah,
thought was kind of nice.
well,
That
that's also
it's
another
not one big
thing.
action scene at the end. Like they have like three confrontations. Like that's pretty good. But
No, that's another place where I'm like, I don't understand people that like this movie but hate this one when people go, oh, but Gore has no screen time, and he's got very little screen time. But he's there throughout. Like he's in every major set piece with the exception of the Zeus one. Hela completely disappears through the middle of that movie in the last movie.
Yeah, the real problem is we just don't explore the ideas when he's there.
Yeah,
And so it
exactly.
seems like the potentially interesting stuff that we're taking from the Aaron run, both with him and with Jane Foster, and I think that there is potential for combining those things in the same movie. Like it's not inherently bad that that's all sandwiched together, because you have a god who is disillusioned about his own kind, and then and with Gore you have a guy who is questioning his beliefs and has that all shattered. And then you have a third character who is dying and looks to, in a way, the gods for help through the hammer and becomes a god. And these are all three characters that have some similarities and differences talking about one idea that could be really interesting to discuss, right? Like there's a whole analysis to be done there, and it's kind of just there. You know, we don't do enough with it. And then like I said earlier, the parallels that are there are just spelled out in dialogue, so there's nothing to chew on.
Yeah, which reminds me, I started my Gore thing and then we like jumped all over the place, which
Talk
is
about
okay.
every
But
other thing in the movie. I'm sorry, man.
since no, since we're talking about Gore again, I'll fit this in. It's
Please
okay
do.
because we're like, moving on stuff. But his plan doesn't make any sense to me because he, again, his daughter died and he's like, oh, the gods don't care. They let my daughter die. And
That makes it okay for me to kill the gods.
it makes it okay for me to kill the gods. Exactly. So, so he needs to get Thor's axe. So what he does is he kidnaps all of the kids in Asgard and he takes them away and he's like, okay, Thor is now going to come and get them. But his whole thing was that the gods didn't help him when his kid needed help. So either Thor isn't going to care, which is part of his logic, or he's going to show up, which is what he wants, which disproves his whole thing about gods not caring and letting people die.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from, except the problem is that Thor is only sort of a god, right? Like he fits in also a different group, which is superheroes.
Hmm.
And if Thor and Gore knows everything for some reason, and so
Yeah.
if he's been paying attention, he would see Thor as an exception, not the rule, right?
Hmm.
All
But
we
you would
have to
think that would
do
come up.
is talk about it. That's what I was going to say. Is
Exactly. Yeah.
you're right with what we're given, because it's weird that he is. You're right that he is like using kids to lure a god when his whole thing is the gods didn't care about my kid, and so yeah, it would kind of prove him wrong if Thor does the thing he wants to do. All he has to do is say Thor doesn't really count because he is a superhero and he always saves people, and I've been watching him through whatever means he has to see everything that happens in the universe, and I know he'll show up if I do this. So that's really sloppy. But the other thing is, why does he need all the kids? Why not just kidnap one kid?
Mm. Yeah, I guess so that we can do. I don't know. Just we got to save all the kids. uh,
Well, and just so that we
it's
can have
bigger stakes, I guess.
everything is so contrived in this movie. You get to the end and it's like, well, we have all these kids here. Why? So that they can all get Thor's powers. And we can have this big exciting scene where Thor, doesn't do it himself, but gives these children the ability to do that. And then we have to find a way to get our other heroic characters off screen so that that scene can work. Like it's
Mhm.
really contrived.
Yeah, exactly. I also think with the gods, and I can maybe understand why they didn't do this because it would be a bit too much of a repeat of the last movie with the Illuminati. But I also think it's weird that the like proof that gods suck is just we get one that's kind of a jerk and won't help
Yeah.
Thor. Like it would have made sense if we had like a lineup of gods that are all like, no, Thor, this has nothing to do with us. And again, it would have been probably too much a repeat of the last movie, but it would also drive the point home a little bit more.
And even if you didn't do that, all you would need is those scenes where Gore kills some other gods and see what terrible things those gods are doing before Gore kills them.
Hmm. Yeah,
That
because
would also give you that.
seeing dead bodies that Chris Pratt's like pushing through on a screen, it's not good enough.
Yeah, like what you, the problem with this movie, and I think Ragnarok also has this, is that the storytelling priorities are, or I shouldn't even say storytelling, the priorities are out of whack. Storytelling is like fourth or fifth on the list. And so, just having like fun, exciting action, whimsical, and some of it is whimsical, and some of it I like the look of, but whimsy and over the top cosmic, fun nutso-ness is way up there, and just telling silly jokes and making people laugh. So all of the thematic weight and actual pathos and characterization and character parallels, all of the meat of storytelling is there just to serve the set pieces and make all of that stuff happen. So it's frustrating because at the end of the day, you didn't need any of it. Like, the stuff I'm most latching onto is frustrating because it doesn't really come together. It's just there to like have a semblance of a story to then give us
Yeah.
that stuff. It's sort of like an old video game.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like, they had their movie, they're like, this is our movie, this is our story, and then Zeus came and he flicked everything away, and we just got the bare bones.
That's
Um,
great.
you
Well,
know,
another
you
thing you have in this movie that you have with Ragnarok is instead of comic relief, you have dramatic relief.
yeah, that is absolutely the case. Which I know you said the exact opposite, but we also haven't addressed the elephant in the room of this movie, which is Watiti's big ego in shoving his character into every facet of this movie. Where like Korg gets to narrate the movie, and he's way more obnoxious than in everything in this movie as opposed to the last one, like even more so.
You know, I didn't have that with it.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but he felt less present than I expected him to. Again, everything is relative. Like, I really thought Korg was gonna be like palling around with Thor in every scene, and he was gonna be constantly talking, and he's doing less of that than I thought he would. Honestly,
Oh, okay,
like,
interesting.
yeah,
'Cause
I don't
that's
really care for
basically
that
what it is.
character, and
Up to a certain point. There's a certain point where we take him out.
yeah,
But
and I don't find him especially funny, and I didn't need the narration. Like, I'm with you there, but I didn't have a reaction to it.
yeah, fair
But I see
enough.
what you're saying.
Hmm. Well, the narration was a big like, oh my God, stop.
Well, and I probably would have been more sensitive to it if I had realized or remembered before today that Waititi voiced him, but I didn't remember that.
Hmm.
I read that today and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that he put himself in his own movie.
Yeah, yeah, because his entire joke is just, isn't it funny that he has a New Zealand accent?
Well, and in his defense, he claims anyway, because I watched a video with him talking about this the other day. He claims that he did the voice work for that character originally as like a placeholder and wasn't going to use himself, and they actually looked into other people, and then people around him, he claims, thought it was funny, so he ended up using it. He was
Yeah,
worried
that
that
wouldn't shock me.
people wouldn't understand his accent. He says, and was surprised when they did test readings, and people seemed to get it, and found it funny, so he used it. I don't know. Listening to him talk, he's got more humility than I thought he would have watching his movies. So I'm just trying to put it into perspective a little bit. And then the other thing is, he claims that the Zeus thing with a terrible Greek accent, and I don't understand this because his movies are so silly, but he said he was afraid the Greek thing would be too silly. I'm like, in this movie? I'm like, all right. And he had what's his face? Help me out.
Russell Crowe?
Thank you. He had Russell Crowe do it in two different accents. So he did takes in both in English accent and a Greek accent, and ultimately Waititi decided that Crowe was right. Crowe is the one who wanted to do that accent,
Well,
apparently.
and another weird thing with Russell Crowe is, I don't know if you've seen this, Cap, but
I think his performance is god awful. I
it's
think it's
really bad.
really bad. But anyway, what were you saying?
Uh, Yeah, some concept art came out recently of Russell Crowe, and he wasn't initially cast as Zeus. He was cast as Satan,
Oh, I heard about
which
this.
yeah, which is really strange.
So
But yeah,
Satan
his
was going to be in
performance
this
is really
movie.
bad. Which would have been even weirder if our one example of a bad god is Satan.
I want the scene. I legitimately would have loved this. I want the scene where Thor is like, "But your litmus test is Satan."
Yeah, Thor's like, oh man, it's Satan. I
Your
based everything I
brother.
do around
Like,
that guy.
of course you want to kill all the gods if you think they're like Satan. It's Satan.
Oh man, all the gods suck. This Satan guy wouldn't help me.
I went to hell. I couldn't get any help.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just figured 3 of the 4 letters in help are hell. Apparently, they're not related words.
Turns out he's just as bad as Hela. I don't know how that worked out.
Should we do some more super chats?
Yeah, go for it.
Josh Gilisano, $5 super chat. Something I thought was interesting is they didn't play with Gore time traveling. Part of me wishes they did that in the movie. Yeah, that's a big part
And I didn't even know that that was a thing.
of
I
his
actually haven't read
character.
that.
Yeah, with the whole, it's been a long time since I've read this, but with the whole Thor as the, uh, sorry,
The
the
Allfather, you were saying a
Allfather.
bit
Yeah,
about that at the beginning.
he's like Odin, and he also has to be missing an eye. But I'm kind of glad they didn't go there, just because I don't understand MCU time travel, and I don't want to think about it anymore. Um,
Well, get ready because we have Kang coming.
oh yeah, no, I know we're gonna get more of that. I think if, and it's weird how short this movie is.
Yeah, it's not even 2 hours. Like I know it's like right on the cusp 'cause it's like a few minutes shorter, but it is crazy that it's not even a full two.
It feels shorter than that to me.
Well, I think part of it is that, like I said earlier, like it's very bare bones. It's okay. Thor's hanging out. They're like, "Oh, hey Thor, there's a new villain in town. He's calling himself Mr. Gore." So then Thor goes, he finds that. He's like, "Oh, Gore is bad. Gore kidnaps the children." Thor goes, I guess we'll go to Zeus." Zeus says no, so they go to Gore. He beats them. They go home. They have one scene, and then he goes and he beats Gore. That's it. That's the entire movie.
And still, on one viewing, I felt like it was structured better than the last one, but
When we got to the black and white scene, I was like, wait a minute, are we in the
I had
climax?
the same thing. I was like, surely this isn't the last scene. That would be embarrassing. And I like that, the look of that and everything, but I was like, this can't be the climax. That would be crazy. And then we get to the actual climax, and that probably would have been better, honestly. But
I at least got Eternity, who I have a ton of fanboy nitpicks about, but he
well,
looks really.
and I like that. I'm just saying the
No,
actual
everything before that's really
fight
bad.
that's the climax. Talk about Eternity for a minute.
Eternity looks perfect. They took a still image of Eternity from the comics and they put him on screen. I have lots of fanboy nitpicks about him, though.
I still think it's weird that he's not moving.
That's one of them. He's just a still image. He has no voice, so I don't even know if he's a person. Um, Again, there's the weird thing where you can only get to him through the Bifrost. Uh, I really wish because you've not read the Steve Ditko Doctor Strange, right? Because that's where Eternity comes from.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Mm,
that's your ice cream shop in New Asgard, right?
what's that?
The Bifrost?
There it
It's
is.
right
That's
there!
yeah,
Sorry.
Bifrosty.
Sorry. Yeah, that's pretty good. You'd order a Bifrosty? Then you're
Yeah,
going to get sued by Wendy's, though.
there you go. Oh, true. Yeah, but they could make it a slushy, so it's a little different.
I'm sorry. Continue.
Um, One of my favorite things about Eternity in that run is that when Doctor Strange meets him, he's like a far off image of a galaxy, like where he's just the circle with planets in them. And then when Doctor Strange asks him a question, he like folds out into a person. And then Doctor Strange, asks, he makes his one wish. He's like, "Hey, Dormammu's gonna, do all this evil stuff. I need power to go defeat him." And Eternity's like, I gotta think about it. I don't know. And then he just goes back into the like ball universe thing. I wish they did some sort of image like that. I think it would have been really cool to just see like, oh, he's just like a little galaxy, and then he becomes a person. I think that would have been a cool visual. Again, I wish he spoke, and you don't really need the whole like.
I bet Tony Todd was cast and then did the dialogue, and then they just went, he doesn't need dialogue.
And then they're like, you know what? No, get Doug Jones to do it instead. Never mind. You also like the whole like one wish thing also feels like we don't want a constant, well, why don't they just go back to eternity thing. And I don't know, like I just want a Doctor Strange movie where he gets to go to eternity and we do all of that stuff because it's really cool. That runs really great.
Yeah, you may never see it again now.
Yeah, I don't know, like maybe he'll show up, I don't know. That's all I want, but who knows now. And
but
the
you know
only
what?
thing
If Sam Raimi does another Doctor Strange and decides
he might
wants
not care.
eternity, he's not going to give a crap how it was handled in this.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true.
I don't know how Doctor Strange still has the Eye of Agamotto, and neither does Raimi, and he doesn't care.
No, that's absolutely true.
He's like, well, he's got it in the comics, and that's Doctor Strange, so screw the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, exactly. And then the way you could have gotten around that wish thing is just that when Doctor Strange asks him for his wish, he's like, no, like I'm not going to give you this. Like that's the whole part of that run is he spends like forever trying to get to eternity and he finally gets there and eternity's like, no, I'm not going to help you. Like,
yeah, they've really got that Gore read the script problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have this with Thanos a little bit too, where sometimes these villains like they know how everything works, and I don't know how they know it works. Like how does Thanos know that the Infinity Gauntlet, when he puts it together, can eradicate half the universe, but can't do other things? Like how does he know for sure it would do that? I don't know. It seems to have limitations that it did in the comics. How does Gore know, well, anything, but like, how does he know that eternity can give wishes? I don't know how he knows that. How is he positive that he'll get that wish? I mean, maybe he's not. Maybe he's desperate. He goes there just hoping it'll work out. But he seems pretty confident that it's going to work.
What if he got there and somebody made a wish already?
Yeah. Why are you guys assuming there's going to be a memo? That if you're right, because I didn't remember that line. That is a really bad plot point retroactively, just in order to make your climax work.
Yeah, because Eternity is ultimately just a MacGuffin, which is why I really just like... My best thing in the movie is just how he looks visually outside of not moving. But everything kind of around Eternity is not great. Or like about him, like what they do with him is not great. I was trying to think. There was another thing I had with him that I can't remember off the top of my head. I lost my point.
Why doesn't Gore try to build an army or something? Couldn't he recruit followers? Doesn't he have like a real clear kind of crusade that other people might feel the same way about? Like, I do get sick of kind of like faceless armies that a lot of these villains have.
Well, we have it already anyways.
That really should have that.
Yeah, when he has it anyways with the monster things, you could have done something where he like radicalizes people.
He can radicalize people, yeah. And I can't remember if he does it in the comics. I think he is just kind of running around by himself. But if he's got time travel, like, I just haven't read it in a long time. I forget.
If you have a cool idea, like where I don't think any of us mind, when they do stuff that goes away from the comics if it's interesting.
No, of course. Well, especially in the context of a different movie. Because as soon as you throw Jane Foster in there, you've already got a real different context when you're dealing with Gore. Mm-hmm. So I would expect some things to be a little bit different with him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly.
Why does she call herself Mighty Thor?
Because, remember, that's what she's called.
Why does the hammer make her Thor?
Because that's what happens in the comics, but we just didn't do anything to explain that.
Yeah, at all.
Drop the plate.
Like, Waititi clearly, isn't paying attention to the reservations people had about it back when it was done a few years ago, and it hasn't been that long. When people were like, "Well, Thor's not a mantle. Like, why would you have multiple Thors?" But this
You don't
is
have the Don Blake thing, so just like inherently, you have to try to work that out because they don't even have setup for it.
this is even worse because uh, Thor's not unworthy of the hammer; it just got shattered.
Hmm. Which is like one cool thing I can give it visually is I like that when she throws the hammer, it like explodes
It's
and
neat.
then comes back together. That's kind of a cool visual.
It is. But riddle me this: how come Thor
Couldn't
can't
do that
also
himself.
use it that way?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you why he couldn't have just picked it up when it was broken.
It
If it
comes
could just come back
together
together.
just so that she can live like she doesn't have cancer as long as she's holding that hammer. Like, everything about that, again, is contrived and weird, and it seems like the hammer has not thought this through. And I'm not sure it even really goes with the tenet of what Thor was asking the hammer to do when
Mhm.
he enchanted it with this.
No, the hammer seems to just interpret what he said, but w both weapons, like Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, are personified in ways that they never were in anything before this, even in Waititi's own stuff.
Yeah, and
So
making
it's
them kind of like pseudo Thor lovers is not funny like the movie thinks it is
mhm.
to me, and gets in the way. And that whole business where like Thor is trying to get the hammer, but then Stormbreaker comes to him, and so he's got to pretend like he meant to do that the whole time. I found scenes like that really awkward.
Yeah, no, none of that's funny, and it's a reoccurring joke. Like it's not even a one-off.
Yeah, it just keeps
It's
going.
not only is it a reoccurring joke, but it delays the plot because they can't just use the Bifrost because his axe is jealous.
I have a silly nitpick.
Yeah.
So they're going through New Asgard toward the beginning, and somebody's given some people a tour, and they've got the hammer shattered
Mhm.
under glass, and the tour guide says uh, it's shattered and in pieces, and they can't be picked up.
Mhm.
So why is it under glass?
So, okay. Because I've actually thought a lot about that. Because, yeah, it makes no sense. But I guess the idea is that
Maybe
it
the Roy
fell
Jane
there.
Foster will come by and be able to pick it up. There's somebody else that's worth. Thor should not still be worthy of the hammer. And I said that in Ragnarok. It's preposterous that you have a movie about Jane Foster getting the hammer and you don't take the opportunity to make Thor not worthy of it. How is that the part of that story we got rid of? Anyway, sorry. So you
No,
thought a
Thor.
lot about the shattered hammer.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense. Because it's supposed to be, it's exactly where it fell, but obviously it's on a pedestal in the middle of like a thing. So that means they would have had to like dig down like 6 feet.
It's in the same
Build.
area, but just because they wanted to commemorate what happened, they had Thor show up once and just pick up the individual pieces and put it
Yeah,
up there, and they just left.
yeah, that has to be how it was. 'Cause it's on like the same bit of grass that it was on in Ragnarok. So they would have, I don't know, they dug down and managed to get a pillar under it or podium.
So I only saw the movie one time,
Mhm.
so I might be remembering this incorrectly. But what I saw was Jane Foster in a cancer treatment center or
Yeah,
hospital or something,
yeah,
and she's going through chemo,
yep.
and it's not
That is
doing.
correct.
And it's not. Thank you. Okay, so I did watch this movie. I'm proving it right now, and she's and nothing's working. She's got stage 4. By the way, in the comics, she's initially got stage 1 cancer. It's not even that bad yet. And then when she starts using the hammer, it keeps exacerbating, and it gets it all the way to 4. Um, that would have been cool. If it was like gradual. If it was more like a ticking time bomb. Here it's just like you're gonna die at like any second. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be cool if it was gradual. Anyway, so she is looking at a book and about Thor's hammer, and the book's like something something healing,
Healing
and
powers,
she's
yeah.
like, "Hey, wait a minute!" And then she goes to the hammer, And then later, she's like, it was calling to me. And I'm like, was it though? It looked to me like you read it in a book. So did she pick up the book because the hammer was calling to her? Or did I miss a part where the hammer was calling? And what did it sound like? Did I miss something?
It was the same voice that Gore hears. That's the sword, where it's like, eternity, go to eternity. It was like,
Hammer, hammer, hammer. It's hammer time. The voice said it's hammer time.
Break the glass, it's hammer time.
No, the voice had the same voice as eternity, which is why we couldn't hear it.
It was the voice of Gilbert Gottfried. Which makes me sad, because he should have been eternity.
Oh no, that would have been great. It's like, oh, the first person that wants to give me a wish wants all the gods to die. Why am I not surprised? I'm about to have a heart attack and die of not surprise.
Thor, you learned your lesson by watching Jade die.
Diggle's dumb helmet is back, and I haven't seen him in a long time. It's so good to see you. A $5 super chat. Y'all chill with the fast food. Side note,
Yes.
Hey, that's not our fault. People keep leaving the super chats back. I don't know if y'all is us or if y'all is all the other super chatters bringing up the fast food. He's also one of those. Side note, it was crazy that Lady Sif lost an arm. Wonder if she lost it from diabetes due to too much White Castle.
Gosh dang it, Cap, you said we'd gotten through the White Castle comments.
No, I said that up to that comment, there weren't any more White Castle, and then I had to stop because the next one wasn't one. I couldn't...
Oh, so there was one in the middle. Okay,
I couldn't
see.
know if there were more after that. I didn't keep going.
Oh, okay.
Does Sif make it out alive in this, or did she die?
Yes. No, we see her at the end.
Okay.
I actually, when she showed up at the end the first time, I went, oh, like, I wasn't really sure what happened to her, which... Put a pin in that, because I actually have an issue with the ending because of the Sif stuff. But the second time around, I noticed that when he shows up in New Asgard in that like big battle, she's behind him and he's like, "Get Sif to a doctor," and then he joins the fight.
So, I love that nobody, or most of the people leaving super chats don't seem all that curious to really know our thoughts about anything with this movie, because the majority of them are just trollish White Castle things. There's more of it, and I want to say thanks so much for the support. You guys are wonderful, but usually we do these, and most of the comments are, here's the thing I liked or didn't like, or you guys haven't brought this up yet. Here it's White Castle and diabetes. Surfer Boy Pizza, $5 super chat. Most of the time I still don't like Connor. White Castle is still good, though. I'm sorry, Connor. He's not here to defend himself. Here's $5. Is back. Hello, here's $5. I should have expected him to pop in on this. Because he's also going to bring up White Castle. Didn't want to pay $5 to see Love and Thunder, so I'm paying it to you! And maybe some White Castle, here's $5. Thanks so much, here's $5. It's always an absolute treat to see you, and we appreciate your support.
With Sif, that's apparently one big thing that was cut from this movie.
She felt like she had to have been brought in for more than she got.
Well, there's concept art that shows that we would have gotten to see her go up against Gore. Like, we would have gotten a whole set piece where she's, like, walking through a temple and stuff.
Hey, you know why that's a good idea? Because she's
Gore
a god.
Yeah.
And he's not killing enough of those.
Yep. But now I have a big thing with her, like, one initial scene that kind of breaks the Jane ending.
Oh.
So when Thor finds her, she goes, "Oh, I'm about to die. I get to go to Valhalla now." And Thor says, "No, you don't. You died after the battle.
Yeah.
To get there, you have to die during the battle, but technically the battle's over. So therefore, you wouldn't get to go to Valhalla."
But Jane Foster didn't die during a battle.
No, she dies after the battle.
Why is that in there?
Which, to me, just screams Chris Hemsworth improv that line.
Improving and they left it in. Yep. It's why in the world do we let these kinds of inconsistencies happen over improv, especially when you know there are like 30 different jokes they did and you could have just picked a different one when you're in the editing bay and you find out that it doesn't fit with. How are we that careless? That also happened with Ghostbusters Afterlife.
When it with 2016.
No, with Afterlife.
What about it for Afterlife?
With Ray Stantz, where he's got.
Oh yes.
You know what I'm talking about? Where he's got that. He made that up. He's got a line about the firehouse being a Starbucks now, and then we get to the end of the movie, and it's not a Starbucks. Why did you leave that in?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. What's like that scene in Ragnarok that I know I said to DJ, and then he brought it up when you guys did the commentary, where Thor's like, "Oh, it's really good that the Valkyries, exist because, a battle group of like all women. It's about time." But like they all died before he was born. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and another weird improv thing like that is that there's that joke in Ragnarok where Korg's like, "Oh, I started a revolution, but the only people that showed up were my mom and her boyfriend." And we get to this movie, and they bring in the comic book thing where there are no women in their society; it's all men. So he has two dads now. He never had a mom.
Okay.
Don't think about our improvs.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to talk about this too much, but I was taken out by the whole thing with like Valkyrie's got to be called King.
It's really weird. Like I don't really know why. And I mentioned this earlier, but we didn't really say anything about it. But she has nothing to do in this movie, anyways. Like she could have easily been cut.
It seems like they keep like shoving her in scenes to try to make her more important and matter, and she does seem kind of superfluous.
Yeah, if she had died during that black and white fight scene, I don't think anything would have really changed.
No, you would have just had to have somebody else take over at the end, New Asgard, and you know what they would have done. It would have been Korg, so I'm really glad that she lived.
No, it would have been Thor Cap, and then the next movie, Korg would be like, "Oh, Thor, you don't want to be king. I'll be king." It'll happen in the next movie.
You know what's gonna happen? The next movie, Thor is gonna be like, "Man, I'm really sick of going around saving people with this kid. I just can't find myself. I don't know who I want to be anymore."
Valkyrie, you should raise this kid.
Every movie, he's just not satisfied with whatever his lot is in life, and we pretend like he's never gone through this before.
Yeah, which so the whole thing with the girl at the end, I think, is the most transparent. Like Chris Hemsworth doesn't want to play Thor anymore thing, because they're very clearly just filming that stuff in a house in Australia, and that actress is his actual real life daughter.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So they're not going to make that movie. So they're not going to make that movie.
Oh, no. Well, I think they will. I think they will make a Thor 5 where it's the Thor versus Hercules stuff.
But you think it'll be him palling around with her? With, like, his own real-life daughter?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I think we're going to get that. That's just his new status quo at the end. I don't think we're going to drop that.
I think we will if anybody but Waititi directs it.
That's fair. But I mean, I could see maybe somebody going, "Okay, how do we try to make this better?" But I don't know if we'll drop it.
You know what? I'm going to go on record right now, and I'm wrong about things all the time. So who knows for sure? But I'm going to go 180 completely against you on this one, Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go on record right now to say there will not be a Thor 5. It will never happen.
Okay.
I'm going to say that because I don't think that the movie is performing the way Marvel wants it to.
That's definitely a thing.
You were saying all the way back at the beginning of this that there's a chance that they don't even bring Waititi back, and Waititi has a lot to do with why why Hemsworth keeps saying that he was like reinvigorated and wanted to keep playing the character. I wonder if he would do it under anybody else. So if they don't bring Waititi back, you might not have Hemsworth, which means you wouldn't get a Thor 5. So I'm going to double down on it. We're never going to see a Thor 5.
But I also think that there is a chance that they could bring back Waititi. I don't want them to,
There
and
is
I
a
think
chance,
this
and
is
if
the
they do
chance.
that, then he'll do it. But there's a
'Cause it's
chance they
not like
don't.
we haven't. It's not like we always draw directors that people don't like. Like nobody likes Peyton Reed, and he's gonna get a full trilogy.
Yeah, but those movies have constantly performed as well as Marvel expected them to. Like,
That
they
is
never
true.
thought those would be billion-dollar movies. Ragnarok was this massive, huge success, and this movie so far has done 600 million up against a 250 million dollar budget and has slowed to a crawl. So, how much better is it going to do?
Well, and Ragnarok did like 700 and something, so it's gonna be like right around that, but
Okay,
probably just a little bit under.
yeah.
But yeah,
So, I mean, it's a success.
it's definitely a question, yeah, about whether they would bring him back or not.
So Billy the Kid Lawrence says the idea with, or at least I guess his assumption with Jane going to Valhalla is she died battling cancer.
Yeah, which some people have suggested to me, and it's like that's a stretch. But I also feel like that's maybe a joke. I don't know.
Super Billy, $2 super chat. Can you guys confirm if Hercules had a CGI body? I have not heard one way or another on that.
Yeah, he asked me about that on the superhero rewind call we did, and I'm not sure. He looks strange, but that's honestly mainly because he just kind of shows up at the end, and it's like a quick thrown together thing at the last minute, it feels like.
I had this conflicted feeling where I was glad that Zeus wasn't dead because Thor killing Zeus is insane. But I wanted Zeus to be dead because I hated their Zeus.
Yeah. Uh, and that I don't know, that whole thing is just very obligatory. Like I think we all kind of knew Hercules was going to show up for a cameo,
I
whether
didn't have that thought. I guess I should have because I keep wondering if they'll use him at some point.
yeah,
Um,
I think the second they announced Zeus was in it, it was like, okay, well, we'll get Hercules now.
well, I forgot Zeus was going to be in the movie. To be honest with you, but
No, well, no, that's fair.
they have they've used Hercules uh, in more high profile comics relatively recently. The Mark Waid run, he was in his Avengers,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah,
so I
because
keep
Hercules
thinking,
is a character that kind of goes in and out of that.
and I really liked that run for the first arc, and then I think it fell off after that, but that was pretty good for a minute, and he was fun in it. Billy the Kid Lawrence, $5 super chat. Jane did die in battle against cancer. He's saying that too. Oh, wait, same guy. Pardon me. Hence, well, now it's a super chat. Hence Valhalla. Hope she got some White Castle chicken rings up there. I gotta be honest with you. This is just my personal opinion. I just think that's really sappy if that's what it is. Like,
I feel like it was joking in that because it ended with the White Castle thing, but I could be wrong. I have heard people suggest that, and yeah, that's a stretch.
Senior Sticks, $2 super chat. He's a rock man, so I guess his mom looked like a rock. Well, they actually talk about how the conception happens with the rock creatures in that
Yeah, we get
movie. And they
a
think it's
line.
hilarious. That's another one of those things where it's like, I don't know why this is funny, but there's like, I guess they're, I guess it's like a homosexual society where there's like two men that male rock creatures that like stand on top of lava for a day and
Yeah,
then
which
somehow
is like a
conceive.
comic book thing, from what I
Oh,
understand,
maybe it is, but
but it's
they
just
talk
not
about it like it's
they,
hilarious.
exactly, and it's not. And he also has that really annoying song that he does before he explains it.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, where he's just like a talking face for a while. I really wish he died.
Yeah, Batman, no females. There's a similar thing done in the Orville, where the Mocklins, where they have a race of or ostensibly all male. I won't give anything away about that. It's interesting, but they have a whole thing with like two males that procreate with eggs. That's pretty, but they don't play it as a joke. It's just like how they procreate. And it's
Mhm.
interesting.
Which is, I'm sure, how it is in the comics, because Korg isn't a walking joke in the comics
Yeah, he was invented for World War Hulk, right?
of Planet Hulk.
Or
Yeah,
pardon me, Planet Hulk, which we reviewed this last year, and it's
yeah,
it's wonderful.
yeah, because
But he's a
Korg,
completely different character.
yeah, and Meek is an actual character.
Yeah, Mutale, we probably won't get Thor 5 in 4 years. Does he mean we will get Thor 5 in 4 years or after 4 years? I'm not sure what he means by that.
I guess probably like in that amount of time. I mean, we know what they're doing for the next what three? To an extent, because 2025 was like blank spot, blank spot, blank spot.
You know what I think is so weird about still having Thor movies this late in the game with MCU?
Hmm.
We've gotten rid of course, some of and the most popular of our Marvel heroes so far, and
Yeah.
none of them were the immortal ones. So, like, if you'd wanted to keep Iron Man around, this is all assuming actors wanted to stay and you wanted to pay them and all of that, but all things being equal, you could have a Tony Stark at 65 still in movies. He wouldn't have to put on suits and stuff. Like, he could still be around and be the age the actor is. Things are moving in real time. Captain America's a little trickier, because I'm not sure how much he's supposed to... Well, was trickier until we saw him at the end of Endgame. I guess he does age like regular people. So again, you could keep him around for as long as you want to. Hemsworth is still playing a character that's not supposed to age, that's thousands of years old. He would have been the first one I'd think you'd write out somehow. Or recast at some point. Isn't this weird? Isn't everything about this weird?
No, because Hemsworth is the one lame enough to not leave. He's like that. He's that party guest that.
In his defense, he said that he had a period where he thought about leaving, where he was just bored with the character, and I mean, I don't agree with him on this, but then it got interesting once Waititi came on. So, but that is code to me for I got to improv a lot of scenes now. Not the character is so much. There's so much more meat on the bone to play now.
Because I can understand why he was frustrated with Thor.
Oh, of course.
Because you get his first Thor movie, which is like pretty solid, and I think he does a really good job in that. He gets nothing to do in Avengers. The main villain is his brother and his main villain.
Yeah.
They're a factor.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that. Now, what he has to do in that is fine.
Yeah. It's whatever, but he's just kind of like an afterthought. Like, he has to be there because it's the Avengers. And then in Thor 2, it's not great. And then Age of Ultron, he's an afterthought again. And he gets like one subplot where it's just an advertisement for Phase 3.
He's really written out. Yeah. He's just off going to find a big pool of something.
Yeah. So it's like we didn't know what to do with him for 3 movies. Like, of course he was frustrated with it.
And of course it degenerated into self-parody. But the fascinating thing is that's what saved it as a franchise.
Yeah.
And I've never seen that happen with anything, except for arguably Batman. Like, you could make the argument that self-parody saved Batman with Batman Forever. I don't go as far as to say that it's exactly that, but there's things in that are definitely are bordering on self-parody. But I thought Returns was already that. So, I mean, it's a little different, but... But you see what I'm saying? How was that so successful? How did that save it?
Yeah, I think it was just because a lot of people went, "Oh, Thor sucks in the MCU. Like, he's just not very good." When really it was just we didn't give him anything to do. Like,
and what I kept hearing was, "Oh, this is different and it's refreshing and it's entertaining. So this is what we want for Thor now." And it didn't occur to folks that really liked that take that it might not be sustainable. And that's kind of what I feel like we have here, where it's like, do you really want that for every Thor? It seems like those folks don't. But with respect, the people that really like Ragnarok are seeing this as sillier than that. And I guess I'm just not seeing what they're seeing. I mean, I feel like in almost the opposite way, I'm having the same, not even opposite, but in a different way, I'm having the same thing that I did with Ragnarok, where we're seeing different movies. And then we go into this, and I guess I'm also seeing a different movie, because I don't think it's that different from the last. I still don't think it's good, but I don't think it's just insanely far left field of what you guys were into with Ragnarok.
the only real difference is just the comedy's way worse. Like, you get like the goats, which is like 2012 internet humor.
People were cracking up every single time in my theater.
Mm-hmm.
With the freaking goat screaming. And I was like, I don't get it.
Stop. The only character I relate to is Nebula, who wants to kill the goats.
She should give them some of that unripe fruit.
Yeah, exactly. I will take the like lame unripe fruit joke over like any joke in this movie, with the exception of Jane's mom's tombstone. That made me laugh.
Billy the Kid Lawrence fired another super chat. Let's hope Hercules goes the distance and ends up at White Castle, abandoning his mission, becoming the new CEO after consuming its near godly taste.
That'll be the Disney remake, because I think they said they're going off of the animated one, so that'll be their version of Go the Distance.
Wouldn't it be so bizarre if we got a Disney animated Hercules remake?
We are getting it.
I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
And eventually a standalone Marvel Hercules film also made by Disney.
So I assume Hercules will only be a side character so that there's no brand confusion
What if
with
he
that.
gets popular?
Disney Plus show.
Disney Plus
I
show.
don't
That's
know.
exactly what I was about to say.
You know, it's the same reason why we had to change the name of the cat in Captain Marvel to like not conflict with name recognition of the brands.
Blue Dragon Warrior, I liked the goat joke the first time, but it got old super fast.
Because it's the same joke over and over. It's just they scream because goats scream.
Yeah, and I guess it's supposed to be funny in certain places just because like it undercuts I want to say drama, but not even mostly. One thing I will give this movie is there were places where I expected a dramatic moment to be interrupted by unfunny comedy, and it didn't happen in certain places where I thought it would, and I appreciated that. There's a place where Jane and Thor are finally reconciling and go in for a kiss, and Waititi lets them kiss. I gotta give it that. Because even some regular, not so farcical MCU movies would have somebody walk in and break it, and we're supposed to laugh. It was really nice that that didn't happen.
Yeah, I guess the difference was that they were allowed to cut between that and just a scene of Korg talking. So it wasn't undercutting, but you were still having a scene where, it was stupid.
Is that true?
Not so it's not cut exactly like between that moment, but like we're going back and forth between the two of them talking and Valkyrie and Korg talking, but they
Okay, I
don't
didn't
really
think
like
Korg,
undercut the moment.
but I didn't think Korg had like a lot of humorous dialogue there. I thought it was just a scene.
That's where he's talking about, like, oh, this is how my race procreates.
I didn't think that was in that same place though, but
Yeah,
I've
that's
only
where
seen
it
it the
happened.
one time. Well, whatever. I'm trying to give it whatever accolades I can give it, man. Like,
No, because I agree with you. I think the scenes where Thor and Jane like actually talk about the cancer stuff are legitimately pretty solid.
yeah, there's some tender stuff there, and people that say like this movie is some people are, because this is a divisive movie. Some people like this movie better than Ragnarok because they think that it earns any like actual heart that that it has more. I tend to agree with that. Like, I don't think it's a real cohesive piece. I think it's I think it's totally all over the place, and I think it in a lot of ways it falls apart. But besides the new Asgard stuff with commercialism, I don't think it's a cynical piece.
Yeah, I also to give it like another positive for Thor being Thor.
Yeah,
I like the second scene he has with the kids where he's talking about how brave they are, and he's like, "You kids are really brave. Like you're the bravest Asgardians I've ever seen."
that's another
So
thing I thought was going to be like an undercut bit where he was just going to have a hard time coming up with a speech. Like there's a scene like that earlier where he's like trying to come up with a speech, and he's
the first time
interrupted
he
by
talks to
something.
them is bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that scene's good. It does have the annoying joke thing that's just doesn't need to be there, where Valkyrie's like poking at his nose in real life, so he's the entire time he's talking, he's like going like this because she's messing with him. That doesn't need to be there. I don't know why Valkyrie would be a terrible person and do that. Um, I think the whole thing with him and the kids at the end is really stupid. But I do like when he's like, you guys are all Asgardians now, and two of them are like, but we're not Asgardian, and he's like, well, as far as I'm concerned, you are now. Some of that stuff was pretty good. He actually felt like Thor in some of those moments.
Yeah, I agree. I would say the whole third act really, but that's part of the problem with the whole piece is
It's not consistent.
sometimes he is and sometimes he isn't, and so I keep kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop where it's like, when is he going to start being a buffoon again? And
Yeah.
why is he a buffoon?
Well, yeah, because by the start of this movie, we've regressed him to the place that he can't even defeat those owl creatures without like destroying the thing they're after.
Yeah, I hated that.
That whole like beginning action scene's terrible. Like when the two ships fly at him and he's holding them between his legs. It,
Oh yeah,
yeah, like
I'm
it
just
looks
tuning out.
really
I
bad.
think I've repressed a few moments and decided this movie is better than maybe it is because I forgot about things like that. Burned in $20 super chat. Thank you so very much. I like Ragnarok and I like this one. The reaction to this one is kind of baffling to me. They're both comedies. People who hate Ragnarok will obviously hate this too, but for those who didn't, I really don't get it.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with that.
But I mean, like, you know, in the defense of people who really like Ragnarok but don't care for this, I mean, like, just because something is a comedy doesn't mean that it's review proof.
Well, like I said, the comedy's worse this movie. It's just specific arguments where I don't really understand it. Where it's like they don't take anything seriously this time. Don't really agree with that.
Yeah,
Gore just appears. Yeah, but so did Hela. Like it's the exact same thing. Like
but also it is.
there are issues that the last movie has that people ignored that are complained about with this one,
Well, I agree with that,
and that's more so what it is.
or at least that's what it seems like. Those are the arguments I'm not really getting.
Yeah, yeah, that's the stuff. Like I get not thinking the comedy in this one's funny, but thinking it was funnier in the last one, because the comedy's way worse in this one.
I also think it's always important to not to overanalyze this whole thing, but I also think it's important to note that when people have the reaction they have to a thing, you don't. It's not always easy to articulate. So when people say
Yeah.
this is why, they're just trying to noodle out what it is that they felt with a thing. And
Mhm.
this is the best they can understand about their response. Some of it
It's like
might
me with
be
Gore. Like I don't fully understand what it is that doesn't work about him, from
yeah,
performance wise.
but it's taking you out and you're not caring for it.
Yeah.
Um, some of it I really think with some people that really liked Ragnarok might just be like I said earlier, that was refreshing from the movies that they had before that they weren't as impressed with, and now they're holding it to a particular standard. They want to have the same experience they did with that because they took it more seriously than I did. They didn't see that as a complete farce, and then they come into this and they're having more of the experience in a way that I had with Ragnarok, going, well, where's the serious story that had some, or I shouldn't even say that because everybody would agree, I guess, that that's a comedy. But I think some people just thought that that movie was, turned into a comedy, has a lot of levity, but they could still take the narrative seriously, and they've lost that for some reason with this. I never had that in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
And weirdly, because I was expecting this to be a complete farce, some of the drama worked better for me than it did in Ragnarok.
No, and I agree. I mean, this could have been a movie that I loved. Like my one of my favorite movies of all time is Temple of Doom, which is all about, rescuing the kids in like a darker scenario. Like we
Yeah.
could have you could have done that for me in this movie, which because that's kind of the same plot point, but you know, we didn't.
And also, just because you're a comedy doesn't mean that you can't tell a real story. Obviously, I gave the first Guardians film a 4. I think it balances all that stuff really well, and it is a funny movie, but it also is a good drama. It's consistent about that. It knows how to balance those things. This is just my opinion. I know not everybody agrees with that, and not every comedy is a farce. So when you have some story beats that are working and are potentially engaging and are resonating with me, but then the rest of it is straight up farce before it's comedic, like that's the difference. That's the disconnect.
Well, and I guess because you mentioned that, I'll mention because I'm a big fan of Gunn, and I know people complain about it with Guardians too, but Guardians 2 you have, like Ego, the main villain, never made a joke of he's scary and evil and like that's what he is. Yondu's death completely played straight. I think there's a lot of stuff in the middle of it that people don't really think about. Like, I think it has some of Drax's best serious moments. I really like the scene where he talks about his daughter at the pool with Mantis, and they have like a little moment together. But that movie's also funny.
I think Drax is sometimes kind of off in that movie, but yeah.
Yeah, which is fair. He's definitely a bit more flanderized, but I also think he has good moments. My issue with Guardians 2 humor wise, I feel like there's some stuff in the first act that doesn't work, and then after that, I think it's fine. Um, and the big thing is that he doesn't undercut like big moments in the way that I feel like people talk about it as if it does. In the way that like Ragnarok undercuts every single moment that happens in the movie, and
Yeah,
this
that's
one's
fair.
a little
Well,
bit better.
and when you're comparing them, but we didn't even have that movie yet when that came out. So I mean, my standards were certainly in a different place, and also comparing a franchise to a franchise, even though it's all in the same continuity, whatever. But I mean, like, I don't think Guardians 2 is nearly as solid as that first movie, and yet, like, I still can't watch the Yondu funeral without tearing up, like every single
Yeah,
time.
no,
I can't do it.
I think Guardians 2 is like a lot better than the first one, and I like both of them.
Do you really?
Oh,
Wow.
100%.
We're gonna have to do commentaries on that together at
I
some
have it
point
on the list.
because you and I see those movies very differently.
So I love the first movie, but I've got issues with it. I think the climax is kind of lame. The villain's lame, and the second one completely improves on that. Uh,
That's fair. I
the
still can't.
second movie would not do uh, Star-Lord distracting Ego with a dance-off.
No, that's fair. I still can't get my mind around the whole like using a battery to power the thing that makes I can't get my mind around how the battery thing works
For
with Ego and Star Lord.
Oh, well, it's because Star-Lord is like from him, so he has like power within himself, but it is power that's spawned through Ego. So he gets the power like through Ego, but he's got like his own inside of himself. He's another person.
That's so convoluted to me, man.
Which is fair, but like, I don't know, it doesn't bother me. I also think Ego's like one of the darkest villains. Like he has a cave on his body of all the dead children that he
Yeah,
had.
yeah, that's pretty good.
I love Guardians too. Like I think it in a way I feel like it is like maybe one of their best movies, if not their best, but it's not my favorite of their movies. It's like number three. But no,
That's
I love
interesting.
that movie.
Well, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Somehow this turned into a 2.5 hour video, and I guess I should have just called it a spoiler cast in the first place because that's what it turned into. But like I said, since I only saw it the one time, I didn't know how detailed I would be able to be on this one. So I think it worked out all right.
Yep.
Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you had a good time. I don't see any more super chats, and hopefully I didn't miss any. But I think I got them all, and nobody is complaining that I missed any, so I think we're good.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing anything that we didn't cover.
So yeah, next week we'll be back to business as usual. For the most part on the channel, we're going to be doing request month through the month of August. Wheelchair Symbol just gave us a $5 super chat. Thanks very much. The MCU got a lot of praise in Phase 2 for blending genres like Winter Soldier and Ant-Man. To me, this was an awesome superhero romantic comedy. I mean, I guess I do appreciate continuing to try to play around with different genres and, like you said, merging them. I just don't feel like the script is very good. But at least it has more of a script.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got more of that. I feel like this is the ultimate because there's so much like Gunn and Waititi are like together, like these are, very similar people. And I feel like I already separated it from Ragnarok because I don't like that movie, but I feel like this is the ultimate distancing between those people in just the general sense.
Yeah.
In that Gunn is very passionate and Waititi's not, and I think a lot of people are catching on to that. Where Gunn is like, oh, I love comic book stuff. Like, let me like do this, do that. And Waititi's like, ah, I don't really care about any of that stuff. I just want to do a fun blockbuster. So that's what I'm gonna make. I don't care about Thor stuff. I'm just gonna make an action movie that I think is fun.
Yeah, it feels like he landed into a franchise where like
Yeah, exactly.
Gunn
Uh,
liked the Guardians specifically, and that's a thing nobody knew anything about, and partly
mhm.
happens because of him in the first place. And Waititi, it's like, well, we've got this thing laying around, nobody knows what to do with.
Yeah,
So
when
they even come
Gunn,
at it from totally opposite places.
yeah, and Waititi does a lot. It's like mostly improv. Gunn storyboards like all of his films from start to finish, and he does have improv, but it's a bit better.
Robert Wild says I did miss some super chats.
Oh, really?
Let me try to find those. Can you help me look as well?
So I just scrolled through and I couldn't see any, but the
Robert
chat cut
Wild
off
says he
certain
had
thing.
one. Yeah, and my viewer activity tab is only giving me the last two, so I would have to scroll up to through all the comments, which I was trying to do, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah, which is what I'm doing now, but mine gets cut off at a certain point and I can't see anything.
My apologies, guys. I will keep looking at the regular chat. So if
Yeah,
you
just
can
put in
just
your question again,
copy
Rob.
paste, don't feel the need to put in another super chat.
Yeah.
Just copy paste into a regular comment. We will see it, and we will just write like super chat in big letters or something. Because
Hmm.
yeah, I'm missing the ones at the top too. It's just not giving me all the super chats. So we'll wait for you. This always
Yeah.
happens where like I'm in the middle of ending a video and then it's 15 minutes longer than it should have been.
Yeah. Uh,
While we're waiting though, oh sorry, go
hmm?
ahead.
I was gonna say to add on to what I was saying before, Watiti improv is, characters talking forever about nothing. Gun improv is like the Rick Flag Peacemaker fight scene in the Suicide Squad, which is one of the best shot fight scenes in that movie, and he came up with it on the spot.
Yeah, the sensibilities are different.
Yeah, but sorry, go ahead with what you were gonna say.
Well, I was just gonna ask you, Austin, if you feel like we're at a just you not caring for this movie and Ragnarok, do you feel like we are too much of a like past the point of no return with the MCU where we've jumped the shark too much? Do you feel like once we've allowed movies like this to happen, and maybe certain other things that we could talk about that that the MCU is kind of like, if not on its way out, just never going to be what it was again, or like will continue to be divisive? Because this whole phase has been divisive, I think. Some of it is, I hate to use the phrase franchise fatigue, where people are just tired of constantly being inundated by material. A lot of people feel like the problem isn't too much material, but mediocre material, so it feels like too much because it's quantity over quality. I'm not even speaking for myself so much right now, just a lot of people are talking about it that way. And I don't think we've had a period with MCU where it's as much of a 50-50 split as I feel like it is right now, with people that still feel like it's as good as it always was, and people that are like, I don't know if I care anymore.
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Like I feel like we're giving creators more of a chance to do what they want, which is nice. It's a thing we've always asked for, but it's not always great, like in the case of this movie. So I don't know, it depends, but it definitely makes me worried about the future. For example, with Spider-Man, like I don't need any of the multiverse fan service stuff in Spider-Man, and we set it off to go completely different for the next one. But the last movie also made $2 billion, so I don't trust that they're not just going to do more of that.
And if not
But
there, with other things.
yeah, exactly. So really, it just kind of depends. Like we had all the big news um, on Saturday, and every single thing that we got was like, "Oh, okay, like that's the thing," or like, "That's kind of cool, I guess." The only thing that made me excited was just the casting of Cosmo. I got like really excited about that because it's just a thing that I care about.
Yeah.
Well, the rest of it's just, I don't know. Maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. Who knows? We'll see.
I'm just wondering how sustainable the whole thing is and for how long, when uh and I mean, like, they just had a movie that made $2 billion with Spider-Man. Like, they'll obviously be able to limp along for a long time, regardless of whether as much of the universe is with them as was back during phase one, especially two. So like, there's no way in my mind the MCU doesn't still have at least a decade left in it, even if it's like kind of on its last legs and winding down or whatever at that point.
Mhm.
But I do wonder if it's made its last $2 billion movie.
It's hard to say. Like, I feel like the next two Avengers movies will probably just, through goodwill of the last two, hit somewhere near that or like up high. I don't know if they'll have the same cultural impact. Like, I don't know if you've thought about this. Like, what is your cliffhanger that is the big thing everybody talks about between them? Uh, the only thing I can think of is just, oh, we create Battle World at the end and they all get sent off to this random planet. But I don't know, is that big of like a cultural phenomenon thing to happen?
Yeah, I think the smartest thing you could do is to not try to recreate that,
But I
right?
feel like you have to have something
Something,
like.
yeah. Well, I think you just, but I don't think it has to be like a what the heck kind of cliffhanger,
No, for sure.
like you had with
But
Infinity War. I think it would be
I
much
think they were
smarter
trying
to
to do
just make
something.
one movie that's like 5 hours that you had to split into two. But
Mhm.
you're right, like you do have to have something that gets people excited to want to come back. But I think you just make that story huge, like.
Yeah, because part of what was so big about Endgame, and obviously as comic book fans, I think we all kind of went in expecting this, but for the general public, it was like, whoa, like half of all of the characters just died, and like now they have to figure out what to do from here, and I have to wait a year to see. So I get to like think about, like I get to process that and think about what happened, and like
One of the
that's part
smartest
of
things
why
they ever
that's such a
did
big
was
thing.
one of the smartest things they ever did was putting a year in between that, so we could have this massive cultural impact, and everybody was
Hmm.
guessing at it for all that long, for all that time, and some people thought it was paid off well, and some people didn't,
Hmm.
but I mean, it performed, and it remained really culturally relevant, certainly.
Yeah, and the Thanos snap, when the MCU is dead and gone, that will always be a thing in pop culture that people remember over the MCU as a whole, is
And
that
we'll continue to
phenomenon.
use it as like metaphors for things.
Yeah, well,
It'll stay in the
exactly.
vernacular, yeah.
In 20 years, you'll get like, oh man, this new film that came out, that's like the new Thanos
It's
snap.
the
Like, that's
blip,
how crazy
yeah.
it was. Yeah. Um,
Robert Wild says this was the super chat from Thomas Lowe. Uh,
yes, when I saw it, I remembered seeing the super chat early
but
on in the night.
but he said he also had one and he didn't put it in.
Oh,
He said, "I think you missed my super chat and one from Thomas Lowe," and then he put in Thomas Lowe's but not his own.
Robert Wild, what are you doing, sir? Put in your super chat.
So anyway, Thomas Lowe's is just asked. He just asked if this movie was on the same level as Jurassic House. Um, no, but like there are things about it that I found kind of fun. I don't know. I guess I wasn't like, oh man, look how like wacky it is that they think we'll take this seriously. You know what I mean? Because like it's an intentional farce, even though it's got serious stuff in it. In a way, Jurassic House doesn't read to me. That's a lot
Mhm.
closer to like a Gotham or something, which is why I find it funny.
Yeah. Well, and then I don't have the Jurassic House thing. I
Oh
finally
no, I
just
know
watched that
nobody
movie.
does.
Like,
Nobody feels like I do about Jurassic House, but I love it.
well, I finally just watched that like 2 weeks ago. I watched five and six back to back,
That's unfortunate.
and they're both just very boring.
Yeah, but I just think that uh, there's a lot of baffling choices in Jurassic House.
And there
This I was
definitely
prepared
is,
for
but
it.
it's
Like
just
nothing baffled me really.
Jurassic House to me is like Venom, where I'm like, this movie's just really boring. But there's like every now and then there's something where I go, that's weird. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Well, and I
But
guess
there's
that's what I
not
was gonna
enough of
say.
it to carry me
I
through.
guess that's what I was gonna say about this because I think at the beginning of this I said there were some weird choices in this, and I guess what I mean is things that would be really weird or weirder if I didn't already have experience with this director now. With
Mhm.
Ragnarok, was like
Yeah.
those are weird choices that are kind of baffling, but not now because this guy does that kind of thing. So like I don't know why he's doing this, but it's consistent. He does this stuff.
Yeah, well, it's the difference between why is the raptor suddenly John McClane and like jumping through glass while there's an explosion in the
It's
background
nuts.
versus, oh, there's just like a goat yelling at the camera.
Well, with that, it was just a lot of like really bizarre plot points that were trying to play as really seriously, but like just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly.
like I know I've brought this up a lot, but like I still, this is my favorite thing about Jurassic House. The Indoraptor is part Indominus Rex and part raptor, but the Indominus Rex was already part raptor, and like they
Yeah,
make that as a big reveal, like, oh, it's part raptor. It's like, it's already part raptor. It's part Indominus Rex. What are you talking about?
yeah, exactly. Well, and everybody like that was a big plot twist with the first, like with four as well. Was like, oh man, it was also part raptor, even though it's just a giant raptor.
Cedar Sticks, I don't understand the super chat, but thanks for the super chat. He says Tiger movie, yes maybe. Sony Craven, yes maybe. I mean, they're making a Craven movie.
I guess I don't know. I guess they're making a tiger movie.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. But I don't know what he means about Craven because we've known about that for a while.
Well, if you go to the Twitter account for the official Craven movie, it's still just Times New Roman text
Is
that
it?
says Craven the
They're
Hunter.
filming that now. That will happen, I guess.
No, I know, but it's just funny.
No, I can't believe they haven't given us a. They can't make.
Russell Crowe is in the Craven movie.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's the bad guy. He's Craven. He's Craven the evil hunter.
You're kidding. Is he really? Is he
Yeah,
gonna do a Greek accent in that too?
hopefully. He's supposed to be Craven's dad, so I guess he'll be a Russian guy now.
Well, anyway, let's go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We sure appreciate it, and I will be back with some more streams this week, I'm sure. I'm officially off, but I'm doing some fun things that I want to do right now. I'm going through the Ninja Turtles Last Ronin book right now, page by page. I've done 2 of those. There's 3 more issues left, so I'll put those out over the coming days, and possibly something else as well. I don't know yet, but Austin and I will be back again next week for bringing the request back, and then next Friday night, if we can get all of our ducks in a row, we're going to be reviewing the old Batman Begins game from PlayStation and GameCube and Xbox. What are you playing it on?
Xbox.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I still got the GameCube.
Yeah, I had the DS game as a kid, and then I got the Xbox One after.
Yeah, I played the DS game a little bit not too long ago, and it's weirdly playable. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, I remember liking it as a kid, but I sucked at it.
All right, we're going to get going. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for all of the comments and for watching live right after the fact if you did that. And thanks to everybody who left super chats. You guys are wonderful. We'll see you again soon. I was Captain Logan. This was Austin, the Day Ghost.
I was gonna scream like a goat, but then decided not to. You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Bye, everybody.
See ya.